What's the preview doing? There we go. We are live. Okay. Okay, we are live. Hopefully this all goes well. There's a bit of a weird message at the start of it, so hopefully we don't have any more internet issues like we had before, because I thought it's a speed run. We're speed running the internet issues here. Okay. Hopefully that's it for the internet issues. Hopefully. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully everything goes well, because we got a very exciting locals for you today in Warrior format, a format that I've not yet covered, and I'm excited to dive into it. We've got the challenge up as well. A lot of people in this one here. Actually, I should wait for TK0 to finish signing up, because there are like 12 people by my counting in this locals here. So very cool to see, and it just shows how exciting this format is, because there's a lot of exploration to be done in it, and I'm really excited to see how it goes. Now, I know the stream is at kind of an awkward time. There's some other very big, YouTubers streaming at this time, but it should be still fun, and hopefully, if you're watching those guys, hopefully you pop in at this one after the fact. So we're going to start the tournament now that DK0 is signed up, and we're just going to shuffle. Might as well just shuffle. And let's go. The tournament is starting now. We've got 12 people in it, I believe. Or 11 people. Okay, I thought we had 12. But still, 11 people. Very good. Double digits. Very exciting to see. And yeah, cool stuff. So let's get this tournament started. I'm excited to dive into it. I haven't really done many Warrior duels. I've been focused on making these sort of like pre-Warrior content, so that way I'd reach the point where I'd be able to, make videos on it while we're holding these locals, while the tournament's going on. So, I haven't really played any yet, but I'm excited to watch some of these. And, I just filmed the sort of, not the guide for Warrior format, but just going through all the new cards in Warrior format. I'm going to separate out those videos. So, like, we've got one video for just going through all the new cards, and then one video for going through, like, the guides and stuff. And it should be fun. But we got some comments in the chat as well, so let's dive into those. So yeah, can't wait to duel. Can't wait to learn more about this format. I'm with y'all there. Sup, Allison Gomez. Welcome to the stream. And no more. It's time to duel now. It's time to get your game on. That's right, CS, because we're about to dive into GX after Warrior format. So very exciting to see. Warrior is still technically DM. It's like the last DM era format. But then we dive into GOAT format, which is GX. And, that is get your game on with Jaden Yuki. So very cool stuff to see there. But, given this is a DM format, we still got Confiscation running around. Of course we do. We got Forceful Sentry running around. No Delinquent Duo, though. Delinquent Duo is banned in this format. So there's that at least. You don't have all three hand rips. But some would argue that Confiscation and Forceful Sentry are more toxic than Delinquent Duo. So, definitely a bit of a trade-off there. What do you all think? Do you think that Delinquent Duo is the best of the hand rips and good that it's banned, or do you think that it's better to ban Confi and Forceful like Goat has it? I'm curious to hear all your thoughts, because I sort of always fall on the side of like Confi and Forceful are much more toxic. Getting hand knowledge is just so brutal, and also getting the choice of what to send is also really rough too. But Confi's going to hit that Morphing Jar out of the hand, prevent Clemens from being able to recycle that hand there. And Duptrek's going to just T-set and pass. Now, important things to know about this format, because a lot of cards did get banned, and this is the first format with, like, a real ban list. You could technically count the format that I covered in my last video, where, like, hypothetically using the bans from the August list. But that format is terrible. That's awful. Because, like, just triple Democ decks with Monster Gate is unhit, and those decks are so strong. Yeah, I agree that Forceful is the most powerful CS. I think that, because you're right, like, sending it back to deck is so much more powerful than sending it to grave, because sending it to grave can allow your opponent to, like, recycle it. Whereas, like, just sending it back to deck is, like, there's not really a good way to get to it, especially because Sangan and Witch of Black Forest are both banned in this format. So that is another big change to this format. And another way in which it differs from GOAT. In GOAT format, you've got Sangan. This format, you don't. And it's kind of interesting. There's, like, no good ways to really search from decks besides these sort of battle recruiters like Shining Angel, as we see from Clemens here, and Mystic Tomato. And, yeah. Yeah, I agree that Comfy is more powerful than Duo because you do select the card. And that's, I think also selecting the card and the hand knowledge, it just makes Comfy much better for me. I get that it doesn't really net you a positive in card advantage, but if you think about it, like if you open Duo, or if you open Serpent against Duo, that doesn't net you card advantage either if you activate Duo. So there are some cards that don't actually net you much advantage off the Duo. So I just like I think Coffee is a much more powerful card than Duo in general. But Ben, I mean, you got the bye, but at least that's technically round 2. You know, it's kind of funny. But I hope you manage to make it past your first game that you actually get to play. But it's like one of those like monkey paws sort of things where it's like you wish for something and then it happens in a way you don't expect. But yeah, I think that also the life point thing for Forceful is very important as well. A lot of like later formats, you get used to the idea of like, oh, the life points are a resource. It doesn't really matter like managing them that much. But in early DM formats and later DM formats as well, just the DM era of the game, life points are actually very important. It's why in a lot of formats you don't really see Solemn seeing much play, because Solemn, while being a very powerful card, just cuts your life points in half, and that can be really brutal. We see a creature swap out of Clemens here. Very interesting tech. Creature swap is really cool with like Scapegoat, as we saw them send off Painful. Very cool with the battle recruiters like Shining Angel. So awesome to see that. Also, Dump Truck is on a Gear Freed strategy, so that's very cool as well. Oh, I need to dump into the locals chat, so let me do that real quick. But yeah, we got the games going on here, and this is a very, very big swing for Clemens here. No Dark Hole, no Raigeki, so this board is a bit gummy for Dump Truck to deal with. That is one of these sort of interesting things about Warrior. After playing so many earlier DM era formats, not having to play around Raigeki and Dark Hole is very liberating. You can just spam a bunch of monsters on field and be like, okay, these are relatively safe. The thing that makes them not safe is like Tribe Infecting Virus, which, we see here. Tribe Infecting Virus can clean up the board a bit, but it does have to cost you some cards to do so. So it's not like, a 1-for-3 trade or something if you hit 3 monsters off like Raigeki. If all those monsters are different types, then it's basically a 3-for-3 trade. So yeah. Yeah, Gearfried is really cool hobby. I think I might play Gearfried in the upcoming Warrior tournament. I'm not decided on a deck yet, but like Gearfried is awesome. Like I love Gearfried and Yada. It had after Yada, I'd say the deck sort of fell off for a bit because, there's just better things you can do with the Warrior package. But now that so many cards have been banned, I like this sort of spot removal that Gearfried provides. It also plays around Snatch Steal, which is a card still in this format, so it is good to keep in mind. But yeah, it's one of my favorite decks as well, honestly, from this format. Yeah, TT is indeed limited. That is a good point, CS. That is a board clear. TT is also something that people can play around, too. So, for instance, if Clemens just had that board and just didn't summon anything else after that, then, that is something there. Horus Decree is something that you can play as well. As I said earlier, I recorded my guide for this format. And that's something that I mentioned, that Horus Decree is something you can play. Solemn getting used on the chain. Solemn is at 3, so, we might see it more because Imperial Order is gone. Ben, there's a Warrior tournament, a monthly Warrior tournament coming next weekend. I'm still deciding on the actual day because next weekend's pretty busy for me, and I want to make sure that I can schedule locals before the tournament starts. So maybe the tournament will start Monday, in terms of like the big monthly tournament. But it'll be a multi-day tournament just like the tournament in Android last month was. So, it should be fun. We see Sasuke Samurai number 3. That is a very interesting tech choice here. But, with Creature Swap, it makes sense. Basically, the idea is you Creature Swap your opponent as Sasuke Samurai number 3, and then you attack into it with something maybe like a, Scapegoat token, and then you draw a bunch of cards. We see Solar Ray getting fired here, so it looks like Clemens is on a really spicy deck. Oh, boy. And we also see a Ceasefire. So this is like Creature Swap, Sasuke Samurai number 3, burn. Like, there's a lot going on here. So that is 2,100 life points here. And unfortunately, that Sasuke Samurai number 3 will die. But if Clemens is playing a bunch of burn cards, then this might be the end of the game, especially if that's like Magic Cylinder there. Looks like it's not Magic Cylinder, but this is very interesting. Very cool deck from Clemens. Awesome to see the spice going on. Yeah, there's also a lot of tools in the side deck as well, CS. Like there's Piccaru's Circle of Enchantment, there's Hollowed Life Barrier for burn strategies. There's a lot of cool stuff in this format. I'm really excited to dive into it. I think like it's really cool because like, up to this point, really the big changes that have been happening in formats have been the new cards added, right? Because like nothing gets banned. So if there's a really powerful card, that's just going to stick around in the format, even if it's limited. You can still do stuff with that strategy, and that strategy likely will still be dominant, even if it's only at 1. But with this format that you've got now, you can have like these really interesting decks that were just power crept beforehand, just come to the forefront now. So really cool to see. And it looks like Dump Truck will take that game 1, but very fascinating game 1 and surprisingly close. Like Dump Truck got down to 450. Clemens was probably playing a bunch of other burn cards in their deck, so they potentially had ways to deal with that. Let's dive into Aros versus Machu Picchu, and we see another spicy deck here. We see Royal Decree fired on a skill drain. And no, this is game 1. This is game 1, not game 2. So the Royal Decree was not sided in. Ares was just hard playing the Royal Decree, which does out the skill drain there. But that kind of backfires for them here a little bit, because Book of Life can bring back Spirit Reaper, and Spirit Reaper can stick around. Rajos is sort of locked into this field here. So, you know, they can't bring out like a tribe to pop the Spirit Reaper. They might be playing things like emergency, or not emergency privilege, but enemy controller to switch the Spirit Reaper to attack. They might be playing Soul Exchange, or Soul Exchange, yeah. I keep calling it Soul Control in my head because of Yugi Kaiba. They might be playing Soul Exchange as well, which could target the Reaper, pop that. So very, very interesting stuff here. Yeah, and it's like this format is especially good for tier 2 and rogue strategies. Like really cool stuff. And yeah, Reasoning Gate gets more powerful, not just with Monster Reincarnation Creator and Serial Spell, as you mentioned, but also with Fusilier, the dual mode beast that also comes out in this format. And it's like just such a good card for the deck, because one of the things that Reasoning Gate kind of struggles with earlier than this format is that it doesn't really have many summonable targets for like Monster Gate. Oftentimes you either have to draw a Crane or just hope your opponent misses off the Reasoning, and then you get out a monster to use for the Monster Gate. You can play Scapegoat, but honestly, I've sort of like fallen out of favor using Scapegoat in those decks because it's just a little bit too slow. And it's like, I don't know, I like Raigeki Break a bit better. Zabuma, thank you so much for the $5. Oh, it just makes me feel so nice that, you know, you appreciate these sorts of locals and stuff. And yeah, it should be really fun, the big tournament coming up. I should have more announcements about that coming soon. I mentioned earlier, in case you missed it, but it might be on Monday, this following Monday. Not tomorrow, but like the next Monday, because I'm trying to schedule like the locals before I schedule the actual tournament itself. And my next weekend's kind of busy, so but yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I'll let you all know about that soon and give you all plenty of time to sign up, because I think this Warrior format tournament will be a lot of fun. A lot of people have been experimenting, really grinding the format out a lot. And I mean, as we see from these locals decks so far, there's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you so much for the $5. It really means a lot to me. And I'm looking forward to throwing it for y'all. And I will also be joining in the monthly tournament too, and it should be a lot of fun. Yeah, I think Aretos is playing a Soul Control list CS, because of the, like, multiple Thestaloses. We got Thousand Eyed Restrict, which, you know, you can play it with Metamorphosis, but Tsukiyomi doesn't really work the same way it does, with, you know, how it does in GOAT. So the best way to clear the Thousand Eyed Restrict is through a Monarch. And so, yeah, it's very cool here. For the monthly tournament, I will be making the tournament for that soon. So basically what will happen is, just like you signed up for this locals in the Discord server, you'll, you know, type join in the tournament chat channel and join the big monthly tournament when I set it up. But I haven't set it up yet because I want to sort of set the date for it first. And I haven't set the date for it yet, but I'll set the date for it like by the end of today. So that will be fun, because I also want to set the date for the next locals coming this weekend. Before I, you know, set the date for the big tournament. So it should be a lot of fun. Yeah, Gearfried is, it's on my radar as well. I'm really excited for Gearfried. We actually saw earlier Dump Truck actually playing a Gearfried deck, and they did win game 1, so they might potentially win that match and move on to the next game there. This is very, very good board for Machu Picchu. This is really brutal. Skill Drain is back up, though, so they can't use the Lily effect. So that is good to know about there. Yeah, I'm not sure I would have broken the decree given Lily is here. Yeah, no Scientist to be seen. Scientist is an interesting card this format. I think that Scientist is generally worth playing because it is just such a good utility card. You know, you can use things like Thousand Eyed Restrict to suck up your opponent's monsters. You can bring out Dark Balter to hit over things. But it is sort of a little bit weaker in this format because you have to have ways to protect it. Yeah, it's an interesting card. I think honestly in Chaos format, it might have been a little bit power creep, which sounds crazy, but like the idea behind it in Chaos format is that there are just so many powerful cards, and like it's such an aggressive format too that paying 1,000 and then leaving a 300 attack point monster in attack most likely is a really risky proposition. So thank you so much, Hobby. Oh my goodness, we've got the super chats coming through today. Oh my goodness. It really means a lot to me that you guys are super chatting, because it's like, it just means a lot to me. It touches me a lot. And it makes me like really, appreciate the sort of like community we've built here. And like, I'm so happy to be able to like provide this sort of community for y'all and provide these tournaments for y'all. So thank you so much. Yeah, and I'm happy to help people learn as well. And I mean, that's honestly my goal with the channel, is like to basically have these formats out there for people to just, sort of jump into the videos, learn a bit about them, be able to play them for themselves as well. And yeah, it's just, it's means so much to me that y'all are responding to it in this way. We do play with Prio Benel. Yes, that is correct. But also, I want to point out, like, this was a very, very cool turn for Ratos here. Basically, they used Soul Exchange with Metamorphosis. So basically, they tributed out their opponent's Breaker and brought a Darkfire Dragon, which is a very good level 4 fusion monster to know about, because it does come up in a lot of situations like this. And while they can't pop something with the Borg, at least this gets the Zaborg out on field. Creature swap is going to be pretty brutal here, because Machu Picchu can give a Ratos the Spirit Reaper here, get in for 2,100, then 400. So this is very, very powerful play here. Yeah, this format is great for GOAT format knowledge. It's very, very similar to GOAT format. It's almost like sort of like a parallel to it. But the ban list honestly changes a lot, because it's sort of like this is a different path Yu-Gi-Oh could have taken, and GOAT format's another path Yu-Gi-Oh could have taken. Instead of banning Duo, GOAT format bans Comfy and Forceful. Instead of banning, Graceful, GOAT does other things. Like, it's just cool to see the different parallels. Oh, rip Heliostrator, sorry about that. Yeah, I need to figure out how to actually set up the times in Discord just based on like the user's location. Oh, E-Provisions is very, very good here at getting back a ton of life points and also popping that Mirage. Now, you might see Emergency Provisions and be kind of surprised by this because it's kind of a weird card. But in this format, Mystical Space Typhoon is limited to 1 copy. And so basically, like, if you want to out your own Mirage of Nightmares, which is something that people are playing because Mirage draws you into a bunch of cards, you kind of have to play Emergency Provisions because it's the only other quick play spell that can pop one of your own spells. So very cool stuff. And yeah, like, if I can give people an appreciation for like the DM era, like that is what I want to do. And honestly, like, I want to apply that sort of philosophy just going forward to all the formats that I'm covering, because like I feel like oftentimes people get caught up in trying to find the best format in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, and they don't really realize that like you don't necessarily have to just play one format in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. You can play like a variety of formats, and there are a lot of formats out there that, while it may not be the format that we want everyone to play like exclusively, it's still very fun to play, and it's good to revisit these sometimes. And there's just so much in Yu-Gi-Oh's history that like can be explored, and I just want to explore it with y'all and get people trying out things that they might not have tried otherwise. So it seems like DK0 is on a Scientist FTK deck here, playing Gillosaurus Reasoning. You got the Scientist as well. It looks like this is game 3, so Hoy sided in Anti-Spell Fragrance to stop that. So yeah. And Ben also says, I hope Hoy wins their duel. Yeah, I mean, against the Scientist FTK deck, you kind of want that result as well. But, DK0 is in a good position here. They can attack in for 1,700 a turn, and that is it's not quite a 3-turn clock, it's a 4-turn clock, but if they are playing Catapult Turtle, then, it kind of is a 3-turn clock, because they could likely draw into Catapult Turtle at some point in this combo. If they're able to keep attacking in for 1,700 every turn, then they can just tribute Catapult Turtle over the Scientist, then prio tribute the Gillosaurus there. So, the likely is a 3-turn clock here, and yeah, it's kind of rough for Hoy. Yeah, Slate Warrior is interesting. Slate Warrior is a cool 1,900 beater. Wait, is Hoy also playing Scientist FTK? We see Gillosaurus and Last Will on Hoy's side as well. So maybe there's a Science FTK mirror match. That's very funny. But yeah, Slate Warrior, cool 1900. It's a little bit better than Gemini Elf in my opinion because it does have an additional effect where if it's destroyed by battle, the monster that destroys it loses 500 attack and defense. So that is a beneficial effect that you can have here. So it makes sense why it sees some play. It is a wind though, which is kind of rough. So a lot of people play like Archfiend Soldiers instead if they want a 1900 beater because Archfiend Soldier is a dark 1900, which works with the chaos typing. But I can definitely see some decks not playing it. Now, how did that get banished? Oh, probably off the Darkblade the Dragon Knight. Yeah, that makes sense. And Darkblade the Dragon Knight is actually a big new fusion that gets introduced in the Soul of the Duelist and Rising Destiny packs. I think it's introduced in it's introduced in Rising Destiny. The Soul of the Duelist introduces Ojama King, Master of Oz, and Sandwich. And Rise of Destiny introduces Darkblade the Dragon Knight and one more fusion. It's not Moki Moki King. That's what it is. Yeah. So that's what it is. And let's see. Do we have any more things? Okay, I thought maybe we had some mentions of people winning or losing. Yeah, Master of Oz was in Soul of the Duelist. Very important card because Cyberstein is in this format, so you can play Stein OTK if you want to. Now, compared to later formats like Reaper format and stuff like that, Stein OTK is not as powerful because you don't have Cyber Twin Dragon, so you can't just FTK, or not FTK, but you can't like OTK with 8,000 damage off a Stein combo. But yeah, it is still legal in this format. And it's honestly not that bad. It's like, it's legal in GOAT format too. And it's sort of like a similar sort of position there. But DK bringing out the Cannon Soldier, tributing off the Scientist, likely tributing off the Ryu Senshi as well. Going for Catapult Turtle here with the Last Will. Going in for a bunch of damage. No Mirror Force in this format, so this likely will be the end of the game. Ryu Senshi can also negate a normal trap. So that is good to know as well. And also, it's kind of funny because if Hoy has like Book of Moon that they want to flip things down, they can't actually flip down the Ryu Senshi, as Ryu Senshi negates things that spell cards that target it. So, Master of Oz Megamorph always wins. Trust. I'm gonna try that out. I've got a lot of decks that I want to try in this format, and that is one of them because I feel like it's cool to see the origin of the Stein OTK sort of combo strategy. So I'm gonna try it out. Don't worry, DL, with it. It should be a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm going to be playing Makura stuff as well. So that should be fun too. I'm not sure if the Makura Chick Loop is really like all too good, but it is legal. So, I might as well try it out. But it looks like that will be the end of the game. It looks like DK0 won that game there. So I'll put that in. And so it looks like it will be DK0 versus Pikachu here. Very cool stuff. And there are still FTKs running around. That is something you have to keep in mind in this format. But it's unclear how good those FTKs actually are. So, something to keep in mind. Okay, we've got a very interesting game here. Oh my word. Oppressed People. That is definitely a card. We see Emissary of the Afterlife as well, searching out those normal monsters. Maybe a bit of a normal monster strategy. I mean, if you're going for like sort of meta strategy, like in terms of metamorphosis, Oppressed People is a level 1 monster you can search out with Emissary of the Afterlife. So cool stuff there. Maybe we'll see like Order to Charge as well, which is a quick play spell that tributes off a normal monster and pops an opponent's monster. So very cool stuff there. Healing Threaded as a fun fact, no card on this first ban list actually stays banned forever. Is that actually true? I'm trying to think. So for monsters, Yada's unlimited now. CD gets unlimited after the errata. Witch and Sangan definitely get unlimited after their erratas. For spells, Regeki Darkhole, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, nothing on this list stays banned forever. Because Graceful also gets unbanned for GOAT. Yeah, that's a really cool fact. I actually didn't realize that, but you're exactly right. Yeah. When I say Scientist FTK is better or worse now than previous formats, that is a bit of a tricky question. I don't actually know. Ring is another way to out 1000 Hydro Restrict, so very good to know. And it will deal 400, or whatever the attack of the monster on field was, as opposed to dealing the original attack in grave. Is this lethal? Yes, that is lethal if it all goes through, and it likely will. But I think it will take some testing to actually tell whether it's better or worse now. Okay, Sakura 2 armor will keep PJ alive here. It being used on the Grapefruit Spy there. But still, they're taking 1,000 damage, and that's half their life points. So this is a clock. But I'd say probably it's like, so in terms of the raw power of the deck, I'd say it's worse because Democked is limited. But in terms of like where it stands in the metagame, it's probably a little bit better. It's tough to say though. It'll definitely take some experimentation to actually find out. I know that like when I was looking into this format and like seeing what people were saying about it, I know that people used to say that like Science of FTK was like, you know, a top tier deck, but I haven't really seen it put much results up in tournaments. So I don't actually know. It might not really be that big of a deal. But yeah, let's see. I'm seeing if anyone. Okay, it looks like Clemens won. Okay, so Clemens won with a spicy list. That game with Dump Truck there. So, yeah, Kesha, just a little bit late. Sorry. Hopefully you'll be able to join the next one though. Because it should be fun. Tribe coming out here is going to be pretty big for PJ potentially. I mean, the awkward thing about oppressed people actually is that it's also an aqua. So if you use Tribe Infecting Virus to pop oppressed people, it will also pop itself. That is actually a really interesting synergy. I'm not sure that's ever come up in the game's history besides this match exactly. But very cool to see. And it's like sort of the sort of fun of exploring these old formats here. Yeah, IO does come back, but then it does get banned. I think there are a lot of cards on the list that, like, right now, that get unbanned and then get banned. Like, Graceful Charity is another one like that. But yeah, no IO is a blessing for scientists, but the consistency is still probably around the same, and going second still sucks. That's true. Yeah, oh yeah, the meta will be the end of the game because you just meta out 8,000 out of Restrict, suck up the Tribe, and then attack in for 16. Very fascinating game there. Very cool stuff. We see a lot of people experimenting with Metamorphs this year. Very cool card to experiment with. Let's see. Are there any games that we have here that I actually haven't shown off yet? I don't think so. So let's dive in to Aros versus Machu Picchu, which was a very fascinating game earlier on. This is a bit of a tough spot for Aros to be in with that Snatch Steal on field. Machu Picchu's gaining 1,000 every turn. They can't get through the Spear Reaper here. Very tough spot to be in. Maybe Dead Rat's got a place in this meta. Very cool to see. Yeah, Snatch got banned, then unbanned, then banned again. A lot of cards have done the sort of like, you know, on the ban list, off the ban list, you know, you do the hokey pokey, you turn yourself around, you know, that sort of thing. So very cool stuff. Is FET format going to be covered or will it be left out? So I'm actually not sure what I'm going to be doing for the sort of like unlimited formats for like the booster packs that come out. Because, you know, if you're new to the channel, basically what I've been doing for the DM era is like whenever a new pack comes out, I both explore the sort of like official format that's for that pack where, you know, we use the ban list or the limited list that covers the cards from that pack. And then I also do sort of like an unlimited exploration where I'm like, well, okay, what would have happened if these cards came out and the limited list didn't hit them, right? And like, we're just playing with them on release, you know, what would happen there? But the issue is with like Soul of the Duelist and Rise of Destiny and by extension Flaming Eternity is that a lot of those packs don't really have much impactful in them in terms of just like, you know, really like meta shifting cards, right? Like they've got some good cards, don't get me wrong. Like, you know, Riding Destiny has Dekoichi, you know, Riding Destiny also has Thestalos, you know, Soul of the Duelist has Mobius, right? But none of those cards get limited. And so realistically, those formats would just sort of be like, well, okay, what would this be like if, you know, if we didn't have the cards that come out slightly later in this format, right? So I'm not really sure if I'm going to actually cover that. It is something you can play if you want. I might have like channels on my Discord server for them, or not necessarily channels, but like threads on my Discord server for people who want to explore those formats. But I'm not really sure it's like worthwhile enough for me to cover those because generally when I want to cover those sorts of unlimited formats, it's for sort of like there's a deck that couldn't be possible when the limited list gets introduced or things like that. So not sure if I'm going to be covering FET format. It's still up in the air. If enough people want me to, I definitely can. But it's really just like, is there enough there to actually sustain its own sort of format? And, you know, that's a question that I'll deal with when we come to it. But that will probably be after I sort of go through all my warrior stuff and I'm starting to look ahead towards GOAT. So it should be fun. But yeah, card to save for turn, very, very cool card here. And yeah, Metamorphosis is a very fun card, and it probably did need to be banned, but it's fun while it lasts. Yeah. I mean, it does get banned a bit later on when you get like, the cyber fusions, which are definitely pretty brutal. But very cool to see. So yeah, it's wild that we're almost in GX. It's like, it's kind of unreal to me. Like, it was always the plan to get to GX and like the later eras, but it's kind of cool because like, I felt like, because we've only covered DM so far, some people just view me as like the DM guy, right? Because I'm really the only one like covering these DM formats like in depth, in the way that I'm doing it. There are definitely a lot of other like YouTubers out there who are like covering like, what the game was like in the DM era. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to like minimize any of their accomplishments. But I'm really the only person that I've seen who's really shown off like gameplay videos like this, for these formats, and like held tournaments for these formats and things like that. So like, I feel like I haven't been like pigeonholed into the DM era because like, I don't think I'm big enough to like really be pigeonholed into anything, because not enough people know me. But it is kind of cool because like, GX is just a very different era, and it will be neat to like explore that and also show people that like, yeah, I am actually going throughout the entire game's history, not just the GX era. But yeah, Sidra into Dark Balter is a big thing. And I'm really excited to show off that interaction because it's very, very cool. It's sort of like how in GOAT format, back when people used to play Air Knight Parshath, they'd go into Dark Balter through that a lot. And that's pretty cool as well. But yeah, Metamorphosis surviving onto me. It didn't get limited until October 2005. Went back to 2 in April, October 2006. Went back to 1 in 2007. Finally got banned late 2007. It kind of reminds me of like, like when I feel like there's been a lot of periods in the game's history where like there's been certain problem cards. They don't quite want to hit those problem cards, but they want to hit like other cards surrounding them and just sort of like calibrate the ban list that way. So like, I'm not necessarily sure it's like exactly the same for meta, but it just reminds me of like, especially like, when they were trying to ban Crystron Halki Fibrax, but they didn't want to ban that card, so they like banned like all the enablers for it and things. It sort of reminds me of that. Very different context, but kind of like neat to see them tiptoeing around certain issues. But yeah, I'm very excited to show off the first hero video as well. That will be in GOAT format because heroes come out in GOAT, so very cool stuff there. Yeah, Mirage on board, brutal stuff here. If Machu Picchu has a way to out that Mirage, they get a bunch of pluses here. They're just in a very good spot. Deco might be an option for Ratos here if they're thinking about it. If they can set up a gummy enough board state and Machu Picchu can't out that Mirage enough, then maybe. And also, Card of Safe Return too draws them cards. Although it is optional, so they don't have to draw with that if they don't want to. But yeah, it looks like meta for Thestalos here. Bringing out a Ryu Senshi. Ryu Senshi is pretty good at dealing with normal traps. The issue is that it can't get over Vampire Lord. So I guess they're going to pre-map back the Thestalos to hit over the Vampire Lord that way. But I guess this makes sense because, oh, we're going for another Thestalos as well. Oh, that's really interesting. So yeah, Thestalos here, ripping a card out of the hand, potentially ripping that Emergency Provisions or MST out of the hand, which would be very powerful here. Hitting a Morphing Jar, that's still pretty good. That Thestalos can also hit over the Vampire Lord without much risk because now the Ryu Senshi's on field to deal with the set. And Change of Heart, popping that Spirit Reaper. This is a huge turn for Ratos there. Very cool stuff. But yeah, it's hidden over the Vampire Lord. And yeah, Zaboom, I also can't wait for Cyber Dragon GOAT format. It'll be really cool. Because I feel like not many people have explored that format that much. And it'll be cool to see like just another version of GOAT, like what GOAT could have been if they had decided to set GOAT format just a little bit further into the future. So that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, Metamorphosis, it definitely does force the fusion mechanic to be balanced around it. And that probably is why they banned it. Fusion is in sort of like a weird position for a lot of the game's early history because like they're trying to make it happen through like polymerization and things like that through like fair means, but then they realize that they can't do that or else the mechanic would be terrible, so they introduce like unfair means to get things out, but then those unfair means are too strong, so they have to ban those, and like it's a very weird sort of balancing act for a long time. So yeah, it's a bit tricky, But it definitely is very interesting to watch, like from a historical perspective. And it's just like, I mean, honestly, it's very cool to see how it might culminate in the sort of later fusion design philosophy that you get with things like Shadal fusion and things like that, where they're like, okay, we've got to break this mechanic a little bit, but we'll still keep it in sort of like a polymerization-esque sort of way. So it's kind of cool to see there. Yeah, and Dust Shoot is also a big sort of problematic card in a lot of these early formats. And it's honestly one of the reasons why, like, you know, I look at people complaining about GOAT. The top thing that people complain about GOAT for is the Trinity. The second top thing is probably like BLS. And the third top thing is definitely, oh, and the Sinister Serpent was the last card left in hand off Mirage. That's gotta hurt. But the probably like one of the top complaints after that is Dust Shoot. Because Dust Shoot is just so strong. Honestly, ring on the, I would have ringed the Senshi here actually. It doesn't really matter in this case because, like, you know, the game's over either way. But ringing the Sentry plays around Book of Moon. So that is a potential thing. But, yeah, I mean, it didn't matter there. But very, very cool games. Machu Picchu versus Aratos is popping off. This game is crazy from what we've seen of it. And, I mean, this just makes me excited for more Warrior stuff. Let's see if there were any other games going on here that got finished. It looks like all the games are still going on. So let's dive into another one while these two are siding. And let's dive, I mean, these have just all been awesome. Let's dive into PJ Darkness versus Dad Option 455. See how this one's going. It seems like PJ is on a little bit of a water control strategy. Makes sense with the oppressed peoples. Because you get oppressed peoples to hands, discard that, bounce back an opponent's monster. Oh yeah, let's dive into Ben Lab's game actually, because we haven't actually shown that yet. Ben Labs versus DK0. We got the reload going here, shuffling back things, and yeah. And I agree, CS. I think that, like, you know, I think GOAT format is one of the all-time greats for a reason. It's a really, really great format. A lot of people complain, I think, partially because they expect, like, they have such high expectations going in, and then they find some things that they don't like, and they're like, ah, damn it, you know, I don't like these things about it, and, like, so this is actually terrible, right? I can't believe people say this is the best format ever when it had Dust Shoot at 3, you know, things like that. But I do think that, like, it is one of the all-time greats for a reason. I'm very excited to dive into it. I will be doing things a little bit differently when it comes to GOAT format because, you know, for instance, I won't be having a monthly tournament for it because there are already so many tournaments for GOAT that, like, I feel like I have to sort of focus my tournament efforts on formats that don't get tournaments, right? Just to sort of spread the wealth a little bit. So, but I will be diving into GOAT format. I've got plans for that. I'm hoping to collaborate with some GOAT content creators for those because there are a bunch of GOAT content creators out there, and I feel it would be cool to, like, sort of get more involved in the GOAT format community through that. But it should be a lot of fun. Yeah, Pot of Greed and Graceful Charity are, like, badly designed cards, but, like, they are sort of fun to resolve. That is very true. And also, like, Graceful Charity too, like, there are some skill aspects to it as well. So it is good to keep in mind. Yeah, reload coming on here, shuffling things back. And, yeah, it wasn't censored because, like, this was how it looked in the original, I believe. And, maybe they thought this was too abstract for kids, that, like, a pyramid gun isn't really like a real gun. But, you know, I don't know. It's kind of funny. Yeah, like, Edison and GOAT are completely different. And they're both, like, all-time great formats. Don't get me wrong. But they are, like, very different. Like, they cater to different play styles. They got their own strengths and weaknesses. And I think they're both a lot of fun. But I do wish that people would stop, like, sort of, you know, I feel like some people just sort of go to war over it, where it's like, meh, GOAT is an Edison format. Like, why do you like GOAT? Or people are like, meh, Edison isn't GOAT format. Why do you like Edison, right? Like, they're both great formats. You know, you can appreciate both. So that's my philosophy on it. And same thing with, like, the people who, like, are really upset about, like, Tengu Plant or something being in the 3v3. Like, Tengu Plant's fun too. It's an all-time great in my opinion as well, from what I've played of it. And I think it's just, like, you know, be happy that all these formats are getting a spotlight as opposed to upset that, you know, there are multiple ones being featured, you know. But yeah, and Hobby, I think that's a very good point. Like, you say, like, you wouldn't like Yada until you played it, and then you had a lot of fun with it. And I mean, I was sort of the same way. Like, I thought Yada was going to be a bit rough, going into it, because I'm like, there's so many powerful cards here. But then having an open mind and diving into it, it was a lot of fun. And I think that, you know, it's always good to keep an open mind when going into these new formats. And it's also why I try and like not really, you know, pass judgment on the formats when I'm doing guides on them or like, you know, featuring decks in them or things like that. So, because I think, like, even if it doesn't appeal to me, it might appeal to someone else. In these streams, I'm a bit more, like, glib about that. Like, you know, I've admitted openly that, like, for instance, Joey Picks is not my favorite format out there. But, you know, I try and keep it still positive, like, because there are people out there who enjoy those sorts of formats. And I think it's good to just still, you know, make them feel, like, welcome, right? Because, like, it is good if you enjoy those formats. Play those formats. Like, there's a community out there for everyone with those sorts of things. So, I think it's really fun. Here's right. That is a good point. Like, I do think that the name Yada really like turns a lot of people off because they see Yada and they think of the Yada loop and they're like, oh, everyone must be like Yada locking everyone there, and it must be like just a miserable experience. But the Yada lock, like, while it can come up, is not really the most common thing in the world. And if it does come up, it often takes like more skill to actually get it going than it does in like the Chaos Yada lock, for instance. So I do think that it is sort of like probably maligned too much because of the name. And I think at this point, it's a little bit too late to change the name. I respect people who want to change the names of these things. And actually recently in the Discord server, some people were talking about like, oh, maybe we should change the name of Android format because, you know, Jinzo doesn't really come up as much. The main dynamic in the format is like the beater triangle, Bazoo, Kaiku, and Gemini Elf, right? But I think at this point, like, it causes more confusion to change the name than clarity. So I think, honestly, it's just better to keep the name as it is right now. We just got to change people's perception of it just through showing them good gameplay, showing them how fun it can be, and just trying to get them to play it. Because I think once you play it, it's just a blast to play. So hopefully that helps. And yeah, Zabuma, there is a bit too much tribalism out there. It's a tough problem to solve. I think there's going to be tribalism in like any sort of sphere you're in, any community. But hopefully, you know, through videos like this, through just having an open mind, having, you know, respectful dialogues, things like that, we can sort of alleviate some of the tribalism and get people playing some of these fun formats here. But yeah, and there's no argument to discussing which one's better, exactly who goes Strider. They're all good for their own reasons. And it looks like Ben Labs won that one 2-0. So it looks like the FTK did not quite work out for DK0. But yeah, I mean, cool to see him repping this deck. I do think that the FTK is good to experiment with, and so it is very good to see here. So it looks like Ben Labs will be moving on to the next round here. And we've also got Machu Picchu versus Ratos going into Steph Curry's match. So let's see if that game is still going on. I just want to dive into this because this has been such a sick match. Very, very cool to see here. Yeah. Bazooka format, actually, maybe we should change it to that name. That's a good idea, deal with it. But yeah. Yeah, Android does sound pretty cool too. So it's like, you know, honestly, it's not really the biggest deal there anyways. And yeah, I feel like Edison is definitely a lot more similar to Modern. And I do think also, like, you know, if you enjoy retro formats, I'm not saying you have to play Modern, but I do think it's good to, like, check out. I feel like a lot of people in the retro sphere are just like, man, Modern bad, you know, like, and you know, it's definitely a different play style, and it's something that, like, it's not going to appeal to everyone. I'm not saying you have to enjoy Modern, but I do think that if you've never tried Modern and you're just sort of like assuming it's bad because, like, a lot of people say it's bad, I encourage you to try it out. Because it is like a very interesting game, and it's different from the original game. Like, don't get me wrong, like there's a high chance that you might not like it, right? Like, I'm not gonna say here that, you know, if you play Goat you're gonna love Modern, because Goat and Modern are very different, but I do think that it is a little bit like, I think that people should try it out, at least, like, give it a chance. But yeah, exactly. So yes, I think the sort of playground mentality is definitely something that causes people to judge these formats maybe a little bit too harshly. But oh, we got a holoprint of the battle bot. Oh, that's cool. So yeah, now you can bling out the Yugi Kaiba decks. That's really awesome. I really love seeing, like, blinged out retro decks. Like, honestly, like, whenever I buy cards, like, I go for the cheapest possible option because I'm just like, I'm a cheapskate. But, like, it is cool to see people go for, like, the blinged out version. It's always really impressive, and it looks so nice too. So very cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, I encourage you to post videos about these sorts of things. The more people posting videos about these formats and these locals and stuff, the bigger we can get, the more people we can get to play these formats, and the better we can be, I think. So I encourage you to play it. I'd say, like, if you want to show the round 2 game, I'd maybe ask like DK0 first, just to sort of like get their permission, so that way, like, if they maybe didn't want to show that off, you don't have to show it. But like, I do think it is a good thing to be spreading more videos and stuff. But yeah, congratulations on making it to semis. Very cool game there. So Machu Picchu will be moving on there with a very cool deck. We saw Raytos' cool deck as well. A lot of back and forth in those games. Very cool stuff. So Machu Picchu will be facing Chef Steph Curry. And let's dive into some other games here as well. But yeah, awesome stuff here. These games have just been so cool. Where are the games, though? Are there no games going on? Okay, we got Clemens versus Barcode. Whew. We see Legendary Jiu-Jitsu Master, another very, is this card released yet? Oh yeah, it is released. It is released. Yeah. Pretty sure that's released at least. Because they signed up for this format through Retrobot, so it has to be released. I just forgot it. There's so many cards that came out, like, around this time that it's, like, tough to remember. So Tsukiyomi will flip down the Gravekeeper Spy, and because Gravekeeper Spy was in defense when it flipped face down, you can't actually flip it face up. There are weird battle position rules with the, with Tsukiyomi in this format, but basically the rule of thumb is that you can always change a battle position through an effect. You can't always change a battle position manually over the course of a turn. So if a monster's battle position has been changed with an effect earlier in the turn, you can't actually change it manually later in the turn. So weird stuff in this format. Kind of makes the 1000 Address True Tsukiyomi lock a bit worse. But it's still kind of cool to see. But yeah, this has just been awesome games here. I'm very excited to see what happens. Yeah, YCS Vegas, I've heard like a lot of rough things about Vegas. But I've sort of like stayed out of the Vegas drama because like I personally don't know like too much about it. I've just heard things and I don't really want to like, make a big statement on that sort of thing. I also, mainly show off on the channel like in online gameplay, which is very different from a big tournament that Konami does. But yeah, it definitely is very frustrating from what I've heard about how the finals went out. And it's very, very disappointing there, if what I heard is correct. So, but I think being a tier 0 format isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I do think the price point on the deck is a bad thing. Like, it's kind of like how, like, Teledad, Teledad was such an expensive deck, it pushed a lot of people out of the game. Fire King Snake Eyes, such an expensive deck, is putting a lot of people out of the game. It's just kind of rough. It's like, yeah, it's really unfortunate, but I do think that, like, in the future, when people go back to, like, re-examine this format that's going on currently in the TCG, I think that people will really enjoy the gameplay there. It's just, like, right now, with how YCS Vegas turned out, with, like, the price point of the deck, it just is a rough time for like, in-person play, for sure. Yeah, I heard there were a lot of rule sharking and incorrect rulings as well. So it's kind of rough. I also have heard from like some people that like, or not some people, I've seen some like, basically what I'm seeing is like just different YouTubers like talking about it and stuff. We're going to get Spy attacking in to a Shine Ball, and then the BLS banishing the Legendary Jiu-Jitsu Master. Is the stream going out? Are we still online? Or is my phone just bugging out? Okay, it looks like we're still good. Yeah, I always have the stream up on my phone, so that way I can check the comments as they're happening. That's how I do it. But I guess my phone wasn't picking up the stream, so hopefully everyone's connection is still good there. But yeah, don't worry, you won't get a game loss for swearing in these tournaments here. But that will likely just be the end of the game, because that's 1,800 off the BLS, 2,300 off Chaos Sork. Or, yeah, and then 3K off the BLS as well. So, yeah, that's very much the end of the game. So, Clemens, or Barcode actually does take that. Unfortunately, the Solar Ray Fairy deck not quite cut it there. So, Barcode will be moving on to the next round. Showing off some of the power of Chaos here. Okay, OBS did disconnect. Damn it. I thought I'd gotten the connection issues out of the way, but here we go. OBS disconnecting again. Oh, my goodness. I replaced my router, too. But oh man, that's just rough. I need to replace providers, but yeah, it's rough to see. But hopefully it doesn't really do that throughout the rest of the stream. Um, yeah, I've heard some of the top 8 getting there by rule sharking, but I heard that for the Time Wizard event, like the winners didn't rule shark at least. But yeah, the stream breaking in and out, like I've had that issue like before, but I thought I fixed the issue. But I guess I need to check that again for later. Do we have any games going on here right now? I guess this might be like a downtime period. So we should have Chef Steph Curry versus Machu Picchu and Barcode versus Almine. So I think those are both new ones that are starting up here. But let's see. It looks like Machu Picchu and Steph Curry should be going on now. Maybe they just have different Discord names. Let's see. Are they hosting? Doesn't look like they're hosting now. I can also refresh the DB page, see if that helps. But yeah, hopefully the stream is going fine still now. Yeah, I don't know. Connection issues are rough. Okay, it looks like Barcode's hosting for Almina now, so that game should be starting soon. And likely Machu Picchu versus Chef Steph Curry will also be happening soon. So I'm excited to see how that goes. But yeah. Yeah, I've also heard about some accusations there. I don't know about the accusations on, like, you know, that happened, I think, before I was, like, aware of those sorts of situations. I wasn't around in the Yu-Gi-Oh community when that was going on. But yeah, I've heard some really bad accusations and, like, not good stuff. So yeah, I sort of haven't, like, spoken on that, but really, really bad stuff if true. So yeah, there's a lot of drama going on in the Yu-Gi-Tuber and just the Yu-Gi-Oh sphere right now in general. So yeah, I don't really want to speak on that too much because it's not really, like, I don't know enough about the situation to speak on that. But you know, I do, if what I've heard is true, I do condemn those accusations going on, because that is rough stuff. But we've got some fun Warrior gameplay to look in on if those games are going to be starting soon. We got Barcode versus Almine here. And okay, let's see. It looks like oh, DB has been glitching lately with you know, connecting and things like that. Yeah, I hope as well that, like, Konami keeps trying to host these high profile Time Wizard events. Because, like, I do think that, like, you know, Time Wizard is just such a great way to introduce people to different eras of the game's history. It's also much easier than, like, building its own alt format. Like, you know, if you want to build something like Commander, for instance, with Magic, that takes a lot of work to actually set up what those rules would be like with the Deckmaster stuff. Common Charity is kind of a bit of a mess, and you've got to, like, sort of regulate those formats a little bit and, like, figure out, okay, what's a potential ban list here, for instance. But, like, I think that Time Wizard is just the easiest way to do that sort of thing, because Time Wizard, like, you've already got the formats from the past, and so it's like, okay, well, we already know what these formats are about, like, relatively, so we don't need to, like, make new ban lists or things like that or balance them, so we can just run with them. And I think that's a great way to sort of, you know, bring more people in, maybe people who, you know, played in the past and aren't really as interested in the modern day stuff, and you know, just get them back to playing the game again. So yeah, I think a GOAT starter box would be great. I think, like, an Edison starter box would also be great. I think that, like, just having those, like, retro boxes would be great stuff. It would also provide much needed reprints for certain cards as well. So I think it'd be just, like, I think that'd be a really cool step for Konami to take, especially because they did their first starter box and it wasn't really the most successful thing in the world. From what I've heard, a lot of people had a lot of complaints with it. And I think that, like, you know, it would be cool. I think that a lot of people would have less complaints with, like, GOAT and Edison starter boxes because, like, you know, it's just, like, much more simple to put out there, much more simple to get into to start with. And yeah. Yeah, I think that monthly Tengu Plant events are also really cool. Because, like, Tengu Plant is another, like, format that I think is really, really good. I mean, you've seen YouTube channels like TCG Rewind go over them. I'm pretty sure Who Needs Meta has also featured some Tengu Plant duels as well. It's a really fun format. And so I hope that that also gets more of a sort of base with this sort of spotlight from the Time Wizard events. But even, like, you know, I just hope that, like, any formats get highlighted, like, other than Edison and GOAT, because Edison and GOAT already have a lot of highlights. But I think that, like, highlighting other formats that people might enjoy is a cool way to sort of get people introduced to these old formats as well. We see Wave Motion Cannon coming from Chef Steph Curry. So it looks like Chef Steph Curry is cooking up some burn here, some spicy burn stuff. But Wave Mode can a lot better now that, you know, MST is gone. Harpy's Feather Duster also gone. So you've got like Heavy Storm to deal with this. But other than that, there aren't too many ways to deal with the spell and trap removal. It's why Death Tornado is so important in the side deck for this matchup specifically. Giant Rat attacking into the set, which is a Desk Koala. Oh, that's going to be brutal. That is 2,400 damage total because 2,000 from the effect and 400 from the attack. So that's going to be rough. Yeah, Spine Galeman is pricey. Royal Oppression is pricey. Even Delinquent Duo is kind of pricey from what I've seen. Yeah, Pulling the Rug is rough. I mean, Pulling the Rug, did it only get a Strike of Neos printing? Is that it? Like, there's like a lot of cards out there that are in a rough spot in terms of reprints. But it looks like Chef Steph Curry is 7-1, passing back to Machu Picchu here. And we'll have to see what Machu Picchu does. Very tough situation for them to be in. Again, no Raigeki, no Dark Hole in this format. So if Chef Steph Curry just sits on a bunch of monsters and Machu Picchu can't get over them, then this could turn out really poorly for them. So, you know, they got to be thinking, okay, what do I do here? They're probably already thinking ahead to the side decking because side decking is really what you need to win against these decks. But bringing out Ryukoki is not bad. Ryukoki can get over the Desk Koala here if they choose to attack into that as opposed to the set monster. And it looks like they will indeed do that. So there was also an argument there to potentially attack into the set in case it's Stealth Bird, because now Steph Curry can flip it up, deal 1,000, set it down. But I think it's still fine. Yeah, CS says, thank God, no more unreasonable board wipes. I think, honestly, people are going to be, like, kind of of two minds about this. They're, like, the board wipes are definitely brutal, right? Like, Dark Hole Raigeki, just wiping out your entire board is really rough. Can make for some big OTK pushes, for instance, as well. But I do think that, like, now you can just sort of, like, set up a big board without really much punish besides, like, Torrential Tribute. And Torrential Tribute, you can sort of, like, play around a little bit. So I'm sure that some people out there will be like, damn, I really wish there were some board wipes in this format, because then it's like, you know, I'm not really incentivized to, like, you know, just build as big a board as I can, right? So definitely, like, different philosophies you can take there. Yeah, it looks like that Pyramid Turtle is going to attack into a Stealth Bird there, lose 500. Now, the awkward thing for Chef Steph Curry here is that they can't do, like, use Stealth Bird's effect to flip it down and then flip it, you know, flip summon it, because then it'll be an attack. So they just got to set it back down and just pass back, basically. So Machu Picchu's reduced 1,000 life points per turn to 500 per turn. Now, that Nightmare Wheel will be dealing damage to Machu Picchu here, 500 damage. The Wave Mode cannon is at 3 counters now, so that's 3,000 damage. Honestly, yeah, at this point you might want to fire it, because you might have ways to deal that last 1,600 points of damage pretty easily. So yeah, Needle Sealing actually is a good potential way to board clear as well, especially in a burn deck like this. If you're playing things like Stealth Bird, that's good to do. Chef Steph Curry not using the effect. Oh, but they've just got double Secret Barrel, so that's why that just wins them the game. No need to use the effect. I mean, this is actually playing around Divine Wrath, which is pretty good. I mean, like, very heads-up play there, because Divine Wrath would have pitched a card from hand, also gotten a card off field in the form of Divine Wrath, so makes sense why they did that now. But yeah, so we got Burn coming in hot here against Zombies. Very interesting deck matchup there. Let's see what the other match between Dad Option and Barcode is going on. We got Forceful Sentry in turn 1, just shuffling back a card from hand, really broken stuff. Yeah, might be Burn in the semifinals, Benel. Get ready for that. Prepare for the side decking against that as well. Painful choice here. Send in 5 to Grave. Could potentially send a Comfy as well, just to get that out of the deck for the late game, because, like, the hand rips are kind of rough. Yeah, Pickard Circle of Enchantment, very important here in this format. Comfy will indeed get sent, along with some other cards here. We'll have to see what those other cards are. But yeah. Oh, also, I want to thank you all for coming out here to watching this stream. I honestly didn't expect to get many views for this stream, because, like, you know, we've got a GOAT tournament going on that's getting streamed. We got the RBET, which is streamed right now as well. So very cool to see people turn out for Warrior format. Makes me really excited for how Warrior format will go in the upcoming tournament and things like that. So looks like Double Saku, Widespread Ruin, Apprentice Magician, and Confiscation. Very interesting hand there, or a very interesting set of 5 to send. It looks like Barcode's going to give Dad Option the Widespread Ruin. At least, you know, it on one monster board, you know, it's basically second red 2 armor, but if Barcode can set up 2 monsters on board, then at least they can play around it a little bit. And it looks like they don't want to give that option 4/5 the Apprentice Magician access here. So I think that makes sense. It looks like that option's not going to set, so they don't want to like telegraph the widespread ruin there. It might also mean that they've only got one Speller Trap in hand. But it could also be that they're playing around Barcode, potentially having something like Breaker or MSC or something like that. So, yeah, Malice Dispersion and Spell Purifications can deal very well with the burn decks as well. I personally think, like, you could honestly just use a Dust Tornado against some of the stuff that they're playing, especially because, like, sniping a Secret Barrel or a Justice Search to the set in the end phase is very good. But, you know, Malice Dispersion, Spell Purification, they cost a card from hand, so they get 1 card out of hand for a Secret Barrel. They also deal with things like Wave Motion Cannon. They deal with things like Nightmare Wheel, Gravity Bind, Level Limit Area B. So they are actually like pretty interesting techs to consider. So very good point, CS. I'm curious to see if people will adopt them as the format's explored more. And we see a Kaiku hit into a Gravekeeper Spy, bring out another Gravekeeper Spy as well. And I mean, that's pretty good for Barcode here. They're walling up. Again, no Raigeki Darkhold, no way to deal with this that easily. So we'll have to see what happens. Oh, what is Circle of Enchantment? Picchu's Circle of Enchantment is a trap card that basically says until the end of the turn, you don't take damage from card effects. So, it's a pretty good card to know about for burn stuff, but honestly, that's part of why we have these locals, because the locals, you know, help people get introduced to new cards that they might want to feature in their deck in the future. Chain Burst is also very funny, because then your opponent's taking 1,000 every time they activate a trap. So, you know, for those big, like, you know, Secret Barrel chains at the end of the turn or something, it's really, really rough for them. Looks like Mobius popping a heavy here. So maybe not the trade that Barcode wanted to make, but it's the trade that they're having to take. And it's kind of rough for them, honestly. Mobius is a house, and it is introduced in this format, Soul the Duelist. So definitely a very good card to keep an eye on here. So, ooh, you got some funny tech. Okay, I'm excited to see it. Okay, looks like Barcode's going to set another here, set another as well, a monster too. And I get back that Sinister Serpent on Dad Option side. Sinister Serpent also helps the Monarch strategy a little bit. You have a monster to tribute off for the Monarchs. Not as good as Treeborn Frog, obviously, but still very, very good. And yes, there are a lot of weird and interesting cards in this format, and that's part of why it's so exciting to explore it. I'm really hyped for Warrior format. It should be a lot of fun here. That Magician Faith, adding back the Heavy Storm there, and just passing back to Barcode here. Makes sense why Barcode set the Heavy Storm, because they have the Magician Faith to get it back potentially. But, you know, it does make me wonder about that set, because, like, they probably knew the Magician Faith was getting attacked into, so they knew that this set was going to be potentially popped by the Heavy if they did go for that. So what is it? Back to square one. Oh, that is hype. Back to square one. Very cool card. Discard 1 card, then target 1 monster in the field, place a target on top of the deck, basically draw logs your opponent. And in a case like this, you know, you can bring out a Chaos Monster, banish that Mobius with priority here. And that is very, very cool. Awesome stuff. I was kind of curious to see if people would experiment with Back to Square One, as it does cost some resources to just spin a monster back on top of the deck. But if you use it with something like Sinister Serpent, then it's a lot better. If you use it with something like, you know, Magician of Faith, as we saw there, it's also a lot better. So very, very cool stuff. Yeah, Muko is the Japanese name, I believe. I think they changed it from Null and Void because of the Void cards, like Void Imagination, things like that. They didn't want that to sort of get lumped in with that archetype. So, yeah, very important. They're very interesting, at least, to see. Creature swap, taking that Chaos Sork, attacking in to the set. Sinister Serpent, might have been better actually to summon the Sinister Serpent and then just attack into it that way. I guess you're playing around like TT, but if they TT the board on a Serpent, like, you're probably fine with that, ultimately. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is fine. They're still in a commanding position, but I think they probably could have just, you know, played it a little bit differently, a bit more aggressively, but again, I think they're still in a fine spot. Yeah, it's interesting that, like, Null and Void or Muko or whatever you want to call it, Muko, you know, actually fits in with like a bunch of other cards in that set that sort of have the ability to like shuffle back your opponent's hand, draw some cards. Disturbance Strategy is not one of them. That was not out yet, I believe. But there are things like Heavy Slump, there's Mind Wipe. Those cards pair with Muko to basically just rip your opponent's entire hand. You also have things like Greed, which is a continuous trap that burns your opponent 500 for each card they draw. But with Mind Wipe and, Heavy Slump, that's not really that big of a deal. So kind of interesting to see those cards pop up. I think that going all in on that strategy is kind of rough. But maybe Muko will see play because, like, Pot of Greed is in this format. There are things that draw people cards, so it is potentially an option there. But yeah. Looks like, so Barcode knows the Kaiku and the Serpent in hand. Looks like they attacked in here for 23. Hopefully this isn't just my internet cutting out. Hopefully we are fine. But yeah, because of the Void archetype, yeah. Which is a thing with like Infernoids and things. Where you get Void Imagination, Void Feast, etc. That'll be much later in the game's history. But it's always funny when like they go back and like change the name of a card. Like, I always have to like correct myself whenever I say Spellbook Organization, because in my mind it's always Pigeonholing Book of Spells. That was the original name. That's what I was used to. But like now it's Spellbook Organization to fit in with the Spellbook archetype. So, it is kind of funny how they switch those around. And yeah, the Protector of the Sanctuary combos are playable. It is limited. I don't really think it's that good. I think it's like sort of like the Outlock, where like a lot of people are scared about its potential rather than like how consistent it is. But if that ever does happen, then it is very, very funny. I actually don't know when Disturbance Strategy comes out. I think Disturbance Strategy comes out later. I think it comes out like maybe... Oh, I don't know. I need to actually check that. I know it comes out in like one of the early GX sets, I believe. Because I don't think it's out yet. Because there are like other cards that do what it kind of does, but not really as good. Oh, it's in Modern. Okay, yeah. Oh, that's very funny for Chimera Brandon. That's kind of wild if you can pull it off consistently, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's probably relatively easily stopped. But yeah, never forget Frog the Jam. Oh, the GOAT. Back when they used to print a frog card except for Frog the Jam, Oh, this is actually really clever. Using Back to Square One to put the Chaos Orc back on top of their own deck. They do have a Light and Dark Engrave. That Kaiku is kind of rough because the Kaiku can banish out both cards. But Barcode must have a way to deal with the Kaiku, or at least they're bluffing that, they do. So very interesting strategy there. Oh, Disturbance Strategy is in Pharaonic Guardian. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Okay, yeah. That's from a while ago then. I guess I just mixed around some of the cards in my head. Yeah, it's kind of funny because like going through my initial thoughts on like, making this channel, I was like, okay. And then like going through each of the cards, set by set will give me a better grasp on like what's out in any given format. But clearly, not quite, for getting Disturbance Strategy and stuff. But yeah, very important card for that sort of strategy. Not the best strategy again, because it's like not really necessarily the most consistent thing in the world. But it is something to consider. So it looks like that option 455 is going to just flip up the Dekoichi attack in for 14, summon out a Tsukiyomi, which will be able to set it down, and TT will come down here. They did have the read on the TT. That's why they didn't bring out the Kaiku. And so yeah, very good play there. That is the one TT that Barcode has access to because TT is now limited. So very cool stuff. Yeah, that's the question, Ben L. Good luck on that. MST on the Widespread Ruin, banishing 2 from Grave to bring out a Chaos Sork here. We've got some really intense gameplay here. Very back and forth stuff. I mean, we've seen a lot of that throughout this locals tournament, and it just makes me even more excited for Warrior. So if y'all are like interested in Warrior, definitely head on over to the YGF from Zero Discord server to play it there, and also play in the monthly tournament coming up. Should be a lot of fun. Breaker breaking that Raigeki break there, going for Snap Steal on the Chaos Sork, and they're going to attack in for 3,900. Now, there is potentially a debate to just, banish the Sork with its own effect, but with MST being gone, with Heavy being gone, there's less outs to Snap Steal, so you should be ultimately fine. And you can always just banish the Chaos Sork at a later date and just make things really hard for your opponent. Let's see. All the spies are gone, I believe. No, okay, there's only 2 spies gone. So, that could be a set spy, but set spy is dealt with by Chaos Sork. So, they could attack that way. Looks like they're going to choose to attack him with Kaiku first. I feel like Okay, what are they playing around here, tagging in with Kaiku first? I feel like you might want to tag him with Breaker first instead of the Kaiku, because if it was Sinister Serpent set, then you banish it with the Kaiku, and you're fine. And there aren't really any, like, 1,700 or 1,600 attack point monsters, or defense point monsters that you're worried about. I guess DD Warrior Lady is a thing. If it's DD Warrior Lady, you're probably fine just attacking with Breaker. If they don't banish, you just banish it with Chaos Orc. So, I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that sequence of attacking, but it's ultimately fine here. We do see Night Assailant is being played by Barcode here to pair with things like Regeki Break, like Back to Square One. So I do like that sort of tech there. Very cool to see. And we'll have to see how that actually does for them overall. Kaiju attacking in first again. I like Breaker attacking in first. I guess you're playing around Night Assailant now. But I don't know. Like, I feel like, you know, if it's Night Assailant, they're gonna pop Kaiku either way. I guess they're low enough that it's fine. But yeah. Oh, we got DK0 in call. Welcome to the call.
Hey,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
So you brought Scientist FDK to the locals, right?
I downloaded a historic scientist FTK list 5 minutes before I registered. And so, yeah, tournament didn't go well.
Do you think that I know it's a historic list. Do you think that there were things that you would change for, you know, revisiting this format now?
Yeah, probably. You mean if I played scientist again?
Yeah.
Like, probably a lot. Like, I like the what was it, breaker format scientist deck. I like that more. I mean, of course, you had triple scientist, but in this format, like, you have a lot of ways to summon monsters directly from your deck, reasoning, monster gate, last will. So this sounds very good in theory, but like the list that I played has like problems with, for example, I drew like monster gate several times and couldn't use it. Sorry.
Yeah. And also
Um,
hitting like a Gillosaurus off Monster Gate is really rough.
yeah,
Because you want to
and
hit the
then
high
like
impact
you have
cards.
yeah, and you have like all these do nothing garnets that don't really help you, and like he only played a single cannon soldier in his list instead of three of them, because cannon soldier plus double last will is FTK, cannon soldier last will what's the card, spell
Spell
reproduction, is
reproduction,
it
yeah.
the name? Yeah, is also FTK and so on. So I think you could optimize the list, and I'm like surprised that this guy got third place in a historic Shonen Jump Championship
Yeah, it's a different
with like,
time. You know, it's
I think it's a bit of a janky list, yeah.
yeah.
But
But
something that's real funny is that my first round opponent also played Science FTK apparently, or some kind of FTK. I'm not entirely sure.
yeah, it looked like science to me, but it was just very interesting just popping into that duel and being like,
Mm,
oh damn, a science FTK mirror match. And then this is DK0, the science player who played you in the
right.
locals. But yeah, I don't really have the highest hope for science FTK in this format. Like, I don't think it will be the best thing in the world. Um, it's definitely a boogeyman though that I'm sure a lot of people will be afraid of. But I think that honestly, like, we're
Um,
seeing a burn deck here. I think the burn decks will be much scarier when talking about degenerate decks here.
No, right. If I had more time, like I could have built like library sighting into jar, for example, which
Mm.
also sounds very scary. Or some kind of burn deck, as you say. I was thinking about stall burn because
Mm.
like there's not much apparently that you can do about stall cards, and there's so many in this format.
Yeah.
You have level limit, you have gravity, you have messenger, you have wall of
Wall
what's
of
the
Revealing
card?
Light.
Wall of light. No,
Mm.
no. Yeah, oh, no, you're right. Wall of Revealing Light. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have that. You have more even. I mean, we just saw, what's the name? Nightmare Wheel?
Yeah. And that's
Like,
really hard to deal with.
it just blocks. Yeah, it just blocks one monster, but it also burns, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And also, you can even use it proactively. Like, if you have the read that your opponent has, like, Magician of Faith set, you fire Nightmare Wheel, they can't flip up that Faith. And so that's really
Right.
good as well.
There's There's more utility. So I was thinking about like stall cards, but then like we just saw the other burn duel, and the burn player just had like stealth bird, death koala, and like the opponent couldn't even really do anything about that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I mean that just shows the power of this deck
That's
because
crazy. Yeah,
it often takes free game ones, I think, and then you just gotta hope that games 2 and 3 they can't pull off their combo
Mhm.
before you draw into your outs. So very
Right.
tricky stuff.
And in this format, you still have fiber jar, which is insane. Like,
Yeah, because Fiber Jar, what you care about with Fiber Jar is damage afterwards, right? Because that's the only thing that
right,
remains through Fiber Jar. I mean, if you banish things with Kaiku, sure, that takes some things out of the deck. But like the big thing is, after the Fiber Jar activation, both players are reset to the beginning, but one player has less life points than the other. So with a burn deck, you can really take advantage of that. Use up all your resources very quickly. Rely on that Fiber Jar to refresh them and get back into the game. So very very tough stuff. Oh, heavy though coming down. That
right,
is
right.
one of the outs, but ring, secret barrel. This is the correct sequencing for this because you want the Ryukoki to be on field for the secret barrel to deal a little bit more damage. So, yeah, that'll be 1,200, yep, and then 2,400 from the Koki. And yeah, so still pretty good for Chef Steph Curry, but the downside here is that now Machu Picchu has the sort of aggressive presence. Chef Steph Curry's down pretty low. And that Reaper's going to rip some cards out of hand potentially as well. So yeah, this is looking kind of rough for Chef Steph Curry. But as we said, Fiber Jar, I can make everything a little bit better for them. So if they do have that,
Morphin jar,
yeah,
right? Morphin jar would also be good.
yeah. But with Morphing Jar, the thing is that Machu Picchu can play around it a little bit. A pot, well, I mean, if you want someone to get back into the game, pot is about as good as it gets.
Right.
So very good stuff here. Interestingly, there was some stuff brought up about a historic list in the comments where there actually some cards were listed as being Dark Necrofear, but they were actually Bazoo the Soul Eater. So that's kind of neat, and it does show like one of the risks in going for these historic lists is that like occasionally, you're gonna wind up with like clerical errors, where just people misrecord some things, and it didn't like it's not actually how it was. But this is a good play. Chef Steph Curry with the read that Machu Picchu isn't on things like Sakaritsu Armor here, for instance. So they can just attack in freely and then just commit their whole hand to board and make that Spirit Reaper get a little bit less value here. So very, very good heads up play.
He might just win this despite being down on cards, but now, ooh,
No, but
Ryukoki. Okay, this is a problem. Yeah.
this is a 2-turn clock. Okay, Geometria will like stem the bleeding a little bit, and it's awkward though because even if they draw like Just Desserts here, it's only 1,000 damage off the wave motion, and Just Desserts is 2,500, so that isn't even the end of the game.
It's 200 short. Yeah.
Yeah, so a rough spot to be in. I'm not sure how they can really get back into this. If they're playing Gyakugiri Panda, that could help because what you do is you just bring out Gyakugiri Panda, attack into the Spirit Reaper, and leave your opponent all the cards on their field. So that way, they can't get over the Gyakugiri. But it's still rough. Okay, it looks like
Wouldn't that even
is getting fired.
No, that would be game if he has Gyakugiri, that's game because right?
Oh yeah, because that's 33. Yeah, so that's 3,000. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and
But
just
it's
a little bit off.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's rough. That 200 difference. There is also an argument like there's a secret barrel that didn't get committed to field earlier, and I think Chef Steph Curry was waiting for that a little bit, but maybe that would have turned the tide there. But very very good game between both players. Very well played for sure. So very good stuff. And yeah, looks like Ben L is going to be playing against zombies here. And right now we've got Dat Option versus Barcode still going on. Very cool stuff. And, it's interesting because, like, there's been discussion in, like, Discords about Tsukiyomi in this format because, Tsukiyomi plus, 1,000 strict, very powerful in GOAT. Yeah, but in this format, a bit less strong because of the way the battle position rules work. But we're still seeing it get played here, and it looks like it's doing okay, honestly.
Yeah. I just wanted to add, okay, Magician.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to add, like, Burn looked good as usual. I mean, like, ever since I want to say Yada, Burn always kind of looks very interesting, but it doesn't really have representation in the monthly tournaments. And yeah, like, usually no one is playing Burn, or maybe one person, two people, and they don't top.
Yeah.
I feel like what we are missing is like Burn players from GOAT format coming to like Warrior in this case or other retro DM formats and
Yeah.
like
And
showing us how it's done, right?
yeah, and I think it's just because like Burn is such it's a type of deck that favors a very particular playstyle, and it's a playstyle that both not many people want to play, and also the people that do want to play, they have to actually be really good at it to pull it off. And that's a tricky thing, and like not everyone is going to be fit those criteria. There are definitely people out there who do, but most of them just play GOAT, and they're focusing on really making Burn like the topping deck it is in GOAT format. So it would really be great if those people want to jump on over into Warrior, things like that, experiment with it a little bit, because the deck is probably very similar to how it is in GOAT format. It's just there's some slight differences that do change a fair amount of things. But that's interesting. Going for a blind MST on the back row. I mean, we're jumping into this mid game, so maybe it's not quite blind, but yeah, going for BLS here as well, hidden over the tribe, and potentially getting game here. Depending on what the set is. Yep, that will indeed be game. Yeah, BLS, such a powerful card. I'll bring up because someone mentioned Makura in the chat. I have seen some people experimenting with Makura. It is a warrior, so you can search that off Rhoda. Pretty strong effect, being able to use trap cards from your hand. The original hand traps, you could say. But yeah, it is kind of niche though, so that is something to keep in mind.
I mean, what are you going to do with Makura? Like, I haven't looked into it.
I mean, there is of course the
Is there
loop
like
with Chick the Yellow and like Call the Haunted and stuff, which is a silly loop. Which that was why Chick the Yellow got semi-limited originally, because people were doing that loop in the OCG, and that list sort of got passed over to the TCG as well. But realistically, I don't really think that's very good. It just takes too much setup to actually pull off, and Chick the Yellow is a terrible card otherwise. But like beyond that, I guess, yeah, because like I don't know, there's very little reason to do it. Like Reckless Greed's limited too, so like you're not really getting super good value off of like going for a deep draw Reckless deck because you only have one. So yeah, it's kind of a weird card. I'm curious to see what people do with it, but I'm not really sure there's much to do with it.
Unfortunately, we don't have 6 cents. Right.
Yeah, that would really change a lot. Like that card is busted. I'm very glad we didn't get that until much later in the game's history, because that would have been wild. I mean, it would have gotten banned very quickly, I think, but or at least you hope it would. But
And yeah.
Yeah, Makura probably would be better if we still had Mirror Force. But again, yeah, it is very situational, because like the idea is like you get to use traps from hand if Makura is destroyed or sent to the graveyard at all. But like it's kind of weird. It does turn Jar of Greed into more upstarts, that's true. But yeah, Exchange of Spirit also isn't released, so you can't pull off the Exchange Makura combo, which was very scary. I remember when Exchange came out and people were like, oh, it can combo with Makura. It's like so terrifying. But then they immediately banned Makura before Exchange actually hit the field, I think. So yeah, that didn't really much of a concern here. But it's still cool that it's running around in this format, and people, I'm sure that someone will try and break it, and I'm very curious to see what they do to try and break it, because very neat thing there. Yeah, I guess it's a good painful send. If you send it off painful, like in addition to Sinister Serpent, then there are two monsters that your opponent kind of wants to have in your hand. So they might give you Makura over Serpent and then get more value that way. But I don't know. It's kind of like a weird thing, just very situational in a lot of ways. Oh, let me put in Machu Picchu winning over Steph Curry, just to get that in the challenge because we're in the semifinals now. So very cool stuff. This was a very big locals. I'm very happy about that because it means that a lot of people are interested in Warrior format. So cool to see.
Next weekend is going to be another Warrior Locals, right?
Yep, there will be another Warrior Locals next weekend, and then the monthly tournament. I'm gonna set up all those dates today. Next weekend's gonna be busy for me, like
Mm.
IRL. So I've been sort of like figuring out when I can actually do the locals. I might do the locals on Sunday and then just start the monthly tournament on Monday. But Monday's a bit awkward for like people who want to sign up late, so it's kind of weird. I'll have to figure it out. Maybe I'll have the monthly tournament start Sunday night and have the locals sort of like Sunday in the day, kind of like we had today. Um, that might be the best option. But we'll sort of play it by ear and see how it goes.
Right. And this was like the first Euro-friendly locals we had.
Yeah, and it was a resounding success. So, might as well have another. And hopefully, like, if I announce it like now, as being basically in the afternoon EST, people will be able to potentially plan for that. If maybe they couldn't attend this time because they had plans, maybe they'll be able to plan for that. The guide will actually be released. So, yes, I'm actually going to do something different with this guide because I've noticed that some people on the guides have basically said, I like having the guide, but I don't like having like all this like just sort of going through every single card that's released in addition to it. So what I'm going to do from this point on is I'm going to be splitting up the guides. So one video will be just the new cards that are coming out, and I'll release that at the start of my coverage of a tournament or format, that is. And that'll actually be coming out later today because I've got that recorded. I've got it all uploaded to YouTube. I just need to do some last minute things on it. And then I'll just be jumping into my regular coverage for the format. And then at the end of the format coverage, then I'm going to make like a more simplified like guide to it where I'll just basically be like, this is basically the introduction to the format. Here are some decks that you can play. Here's what the meta looks like now. And Mind Crush, another very important card that comes out around this time, and very cool to see play here because it is a very important card. And no, you don't reveal. Well, so there's like differing. We basically side with how Goat does Mind Crush in this format. So the way Goat does Mind Crush on online simulators, I believe they don't reveal. So yeah, a bit awkward there, but I think it's fine. In this game, I mean, I need to double check that because I released a video a while ago about how we do sort of things with like Royal Tribute and things like that. But yeah, Minecon is not legal because Minecon comes out basically like right after the event that we base Warrior around. So not quite legal yet, but it will be legal in Goat format clearly. But yeah, just missed out on the legality date there. But yeah, I should make a what I'll do is I'll make like a good rulings to know for this format, and I'll mention the Mind Crush ruling that we do on DB because like basically with replays being allowed, the idea is that like for these replays we can just go back and see if a player cheated or not. So if a player used Mind Crush and they called a card and their opponent was like, oh, I don't actually have that in my hand, but they did have that in their hand, then we can be like, go to the replay, see if they actually had it in the hand or not, and be like, hey, they cheated if they did cheat, and then that player will get a game loss. So that's like one of the advantages that we have online versus like in person. And I'm pretty sure that's how Goat format does it as well. But yeah.
Yeah. Like I want to say two things about that.
Mm-hmm.
One thing is like the idea is you don't reveal personal information regarding the hand, regarding the contents of the deck, if you don't have to, unless the card says so. Like some cards obviously force you to reveal, like Forceful Sentry, for example. But yeah, we don't want to do that because it's kind of like counter to the spirit of the game, I feel like, because like Yu-Gi-Oh, like one of the aspects of the game is bluffing and like concealed information and making reads, and like that just gets lost if you allow people to like kind of cheese the rules. Even with like Nobleman of Cross Out is like a card that is released in Android. So, but like the problem even goes back to Yugi Kaiba format with like ultimate offerings and like chaining it to itself, but only summoning one monster. We never reveal for that, right?
Yeah, and that's something that can
And
confuse new
like
players too.
maybe even fail to find with Sang and Witch because they're mandatory, right? So critter format.
Yep.
We never reveal the deck because of that.
Yeah. So it's all
So
consistent,
this is like,
but
yeah,
it's
this is
something
like
that,
one thing, and then like the other point is I just want to recommend if there's like a situation like that coming up, people should just use the chat on Dueling Book and just make a note like fail to find or whatever, F to F, for example, and then you can easily look it up later. Um,
yeah. And it's
right?
like,
Because
yeah, and it's something that I'll
right.
make clear in for the monthly tournament by the time that rolls around, because like this is a locals, a bit more casual.
Mm,
Hopefully the mind crush, seeing the hand won't matter too much in this game. Hopefully, but it unfortunately happened and wasn't quick enough to send something to the players. But yeah, I mean, it is very powerful to know the hand, but it's definitely not the end of the world here. So hopefully Barcode will not lose the game because of that. But in the future, it's good to know that. And if you have any questions as
mm,
well, you can also ask just in the Discord server too. Just send a message to the judges. We do have a judge role, so you can at the judges and ask like, "Hey, does Mind Crush work this way in this format or something like that?" And go for that sort of thing as well. So never be afraid to use that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, but if you do like, I mean, if you just mess up a ruling like happened here, you're not gonna like get necessarily a game loss for that. But it is just good to know to not do it. Yeah, and if you're warned that like that's not how it works, and then you continue to do that in later games, then you might get a game loss because it gets to the point where like, okay, are you purposely trying to say like, oh, I just don't know the ruling to get more information. But that's like a case by case basis. So if you're playing in good faith, which I assume most people are in these tournaments, then you should be fine. But yeah. Yeah, Archfiend of Guildford is playable, although it's playable in the sense that you can play it. Whether it's playable in the sense that you should play it is another question entirely. But it is around in the format, which is funny. Um, but yeah, brain control is very funny. Luckily, we don't have access to it here, but that would drastically change the game. Kind of weird how like going from warrior to goat, you get both mind control and brain control. They're like, you know what this format needs? It needs more ways to take control of your opponent's stuff. But I do think mind control is like a very. I think mind control is like a pretty skill intensive card in goat format. To be fair. You just basically you tag a judge in the Discord server, Ben L. So like if you go into the rulings channel, you can say like at judge, here's my question or whatever. And then if a judge is online, they'll be able to answer that. And also mods or like other people also will be able to answer as well. But generally the judges have the last say on that sort of thing. So yeah, that's basically how you do it. Yep, at ZK0 typed in the YouTube comments. Just at Judge will do it there for the Discord server. If you type in the stream, I can try and answer the question as best as I can. But doing at Judge on the Discord is generally the best way to do it. But it looks like that option is going to bring out this tribe attack in. Now, Barcode still has the Sook. The Sook has been able to clear all these monsters here. Oh no, Forceful sent back the Sook. Okay, never mind. So they don't have the Sook. But I mean, Sook was very powerful there, clearing the breaker, clearing the tribe. Maybe people need to be playing Sook more. That's a potential option, especially if you're going for a Night Assailant more focused deck with Raigeki Breaks pitching Night Assailant, adding back flip monsters. Sook is definitely pretty good there. Sook flipping down tribe, and then they won't be able to flip up the tribe, but they will be able to attack into the set. So I'm not really sure how I feel about that. I feel like you probably want the tribe face up, but yeah, that Magician Faith's going to add back, and then it looks like they'll have to end the turn with the tribe set down. So yeah, they'll pass back to Barcode here. Kind of unfortunate, if this was Goat, you could flip up that tribe and be fine. And yeah, yeah, you can ask in the locals chat as well. Yeah, just be aware that some people replying in the locals chat might not be like official judges or things like that. Or I mean, I get some of the people like who have the judge role. I mean, the people with the judge role know their stuff about the rulings, and so they're the final say about this sort of thing. But it looks like Barcode's going to fire an MST on the back row there, hitting another MST. This may seem like a pretty trivial occurrence because of the past DM formats we've had where like MST is at 3, but MST being limited now, that it actually is a pretty meaningful interaction there. Tribe flipping up, potentially attacking into the set here. It will indeed do that. And hitting a Magician of Faith, adding back another MST there. So, you know, those MSTs are coming through. We do know about the BLS in hand as well. So BLS is potentially coming for that option here. It's good to know about, but that said, it could be a way to deal with BLS potentially. Could be a Magician of Faith, adding back a powerful spell from grave like Pot of Greed or something like that. So kind of worrying for Barcode to deal with here. Bit of a tricky spot for them to be in for sure. Okay, glad that question got resolved, Benel. Good to see. But very intense game.
Did you see the question?
I didn't see the question yet because I've been watching the game, but yeah.
It was like if you activate creature swap and you chain something to make the targets disappear or one of them, does it still resolve?
I believe it. Oh, that's a good question.
It's a trick question. Creature swap doesn't target.
Oh yeah, yeah, that would do it. Yeah. And like, yeah. So but then the question becomes like, if one player clears away all the monsters on their side of the field, does creature swap still give the opponent one of the monsters?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't quite sure. But good to know because creature swap is going to see more play in this format for sure. Because, I mean, we've already seen this see play in Machu Picchu zombie deck earlier. Snatch coming down for the BLS, but Barcode does have the MST, which we did know about. And it looks like that's just going to be okay. It looks. I thought for a second they were just pitching their entire hand at the end of the game, but nope, they're going for meta.
I was saying, what is he doing? Yeah.
Right. And yeah, so the 1,000 restrict will be able to attack into the breaker. We do know that that option does have a souk to flip down that 1,000 eyes, but again, unlike in GOAT format, you can't really pull off the souk 1,000 eyes restrict loop perfectly. You need to actually spend a turn switching the 1,000 eyes restrict to defense first, and then going for the souk. If you want to end with a 1,000 eyes restrict, face up and attack at the end of the combo. So kind of rough. We'll see what that option actually does. Well, it won't matter here because Tribe will be able to pop the 1,000 Knight Restrict, and also pitching a Knight Assailant will be able to add back another Knight Assailant to hand. Tribe will be able to attack in for 16. Now, that option 455 does have a souk to flip down the Tribe, get over that. But other than that, I mean, yeah, it's looking pretty good for that option 455, honestly. Because Barcode's kind of like scrambling a little bit. I mean, they have used up everything that that option knew about. So, you know, they're getting new cards that that option might not be able to predict. But still a bit of a tricky situation to be in for sure. Yep, souk flipping down that Tribe. Hitting over the Tribe. And yeah, it's the end of the turn. This honestly feels kind of like a GOAT game. Not going to lie. Until the Forceful comes down, I guess. But that's going to be very good for Barcode here. Let's see what they take. souk probably is not getting taken here. Because there isn't much that that option can do with souk on an empty board. But I don't know. It really depends on what else is in that option's hand.
Adding souk would be good.
Yeah,
like, I don't know Barcode's deck, but I'm looking at the GY and like Tribe is gone, Breaker is gone, Luster Soldier is gone, so he probably doesn't have anything with much attack, right?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. But oh, we
Am
get
I
to see
right?
the hand.
Because I imagine he's playing like some I imagine Barcode is playing like some Chaos Turbo type of deck, or what do you think?
I think Barcode's playing a flip control deck, like, or maybe Chaos Turbo with the Night Assailants, but I think it's more just
Right.
supposed to be controlling. Using Raigeki Break as a popper with Night Assailant,
Mm.
getting back flips, and yeah. So I guess you could. I think it's not quite Chaos Turbo in my opinion. I don't think that they're playing Thunder Dragon, for instance. They might be though. I think they're just trying to abuse the fact that
No, they're not.
Night Assailant's at
Probably
3.
not, because you don't have a graceful, right?
Yeah, so Thunder Dragon gets a lot worse. So, yeah, but
And
very
you have triple Knight Assailant, and like Knight Assailant is actually doing something. You just set it to the field and it trades 1 for 1. That's good,
exactly.
right?
But this is a very tricky
Exactly.
spot to be in because, like, if you come into Monster board, it get Change of Heart Mobius, get
Mm.
meta Sinister Serpent. There's a lot of stuff there. We don't actually know what card they sent back. So that is actually,
Oh,
depending on what they sent back, there's a lot of different things that could have happened. I feel like maybe they sent back Sinister Serpent. That's a potential option. Um, because, well, I don't know. It's just tough. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what would have been it. What's my favorite ultimate from this format? It's probably Horus level 8. Like, that card looks really, really cool in ultimate. I'm pretty sure that, or maybe level 6. Maybe I'm thinking, well, they both look cool in ultimate, so you can't really go wrong with either. I'm pretty sure Horus level 8 comes in ultimate. I know it's like an ultra rare and normal, but I think it also has ultimate, and I think the ultimate looks good. I never had Horus level 8 in ultimate, but I've seen pictures of it, and it's pretty cool.
I used to have the level 6 in Ultimate and the level 8 in Ultra Rare.
Yeah, I used to have a level 6 in
I
ultimate
drew.
as well. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's why I know that like level 6 is definitely have an ultimate, but yeah. But Horus is
Yeah, I
definitely
mean all the cards that were rare were also released as ultimates. Is that how it works?
that's what CS says.
Because like I
Yeah. They
I
say it's
remember like having Ultimate Insect level 3 as ultimate or something like that, It's something
yeah.
ridiculous.
It's the ultimate level insect, or insect or
Right.
yeah. Unfortunately, that the ultimate insect can't really do much in this format because all you've got is level 3 as your highest form of that. Um, but yeah, that's kind of a brutal push there. Going for the meta, suck up the set, attack in for 24. Tough stuff. And Ring has not been used up yet on that option side, and Ring would end the game here. So brutal stuff. The fact that they didn't go for change. Oh, change probably got sent back. Okay, they probably sent back Change of Heart. Yeah, that's probably what it was. Oh, they are playing Thunder Dragon. That is very interesting. Um,
It's very rough.
yeah, I mean, what they probably just have to commit the Night Assailant set there. Um, yeah, that's rough. Um, yeah, the Exiled Force can indeed use its effect with skill drain on the field.
Oh
Oh,
my God.
Change of Heart there as well, so maybe they just drew into the cards. But yeah, very very awesome games there. Yeah, Horus level 8 is okay. It does come in ultimate. That is what I was thinking of then. Yeah, Horus level 8 super super cool. I mean, Horus level 8 honestly is like one of my favorite boss monsters from this era just in general. But like it looking so cool in ulti is like awesome too. Like it's just really awesome. But we've got the last couple matches of the locals today. We got Machu Picchu versus Ben Labs 10. So Machu Picchu on a bit of a zombie deck. Unclear what Ben Labs 10 is on exactly. DK, you played against Ben Labs 10. Do you have a sort of descriptor for their deck?
No, not really. And like fun fact, even BandLabs 10 in chat said he doesn't know what to call his own deck
Yeah.
because it's just like a bunch of cards. It's just a pile basically. But yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
And
And I mean, those piles still are strong in this format. They got to hit a little bit because of all the ban cards getting banned, but like, you know, there are just enough good cards to still form just a good stuff deck. So it's
really
definitely
like
worth.
in Pokemon TCG and retro Pokemon TCG, they had like a word like jamboree, I believe, or
Oh,
potpourri, right?
yeah, potpourri.
So
That
if you
makes sense.
just have a bunch of monsters of different types and attributes and like just throwing them together.
Yeah. And I mean, it clearly has worked well for Ben Labs 10 so far because they are in the semifinals here. So,
Right.
And opening forceful, pretty good here. Especially when you're on a little bit more of a combo deck like Machu Picchu is on. Not necessarily combo as in like the modern sense of the word, but like in order for Machu Picchu to get like full value out of the zombie deck that they're playing, they kind of want to, make sure that when they have card to save for turn, they have a way to turn that on. When they have creature swap, they've got a good monster to send over to Ben Labs 10. Things like that. So very cool there. Yeah, Monster Reincarnation has really cool artwork. Honestly, it's like it's it's not like a retrain, but it is sort of like an update to the Reborn artwork. So it is kind of cool to see there. But it looks like Ben Labs 10 just going to set 3 pass. Not fearing heavy because they must not have seen it in the hand. Or maybe they saw it in the hand and are trying to bait it out and have just chainable back row. But yeah. Looks like Machu Picchu is going to set one here, setting another. Will this just be set 3 pass as well? We'll have to find out. Okay, looks like that's going to be it. So this is making it seem like the set is Spirit Reaper and not Morphing Jar. But Compulse is going to be activated on that set. Compulse is a very powerful card later in the game's history. Maybe very powerful here as well. And we're seeing it put in work there. And now Ben Labs is able to get in for 2,800. So maybe this is more of like a Chaos Recruiter sort of deck. Because a lot of decks aren't playing like Shining Angel and Tomato. But, the ones that are, they can get a bunch of Lights and Darks and Grave quickly. They can deck then and then set up for the Chaos plays later. So definitely a valid way to play the Chaos deck here. But yeah, definitely a transitional period with the card design and art for sure. GX, I mean, we're starting to get in, and this starts like in the end of DM as we see in Soul of the Duelist and Rise of Destiny. And even before that too, GX really leans harder into the archetypes. We see that a bit in DM, like Gravekeepers onward. You get to see some archetypes in every set, but they're not really that good. And GX, they're still not really that good. But eventually they get good enough to be worth playing. Gladiator Beast, Lightsworn, later in GX. And we get to see that shift as it happens. So very cool to see. And yeah, they're also much brighter than a lot of the DM era stuff because, it's based more on the anime. And it's not based more on the anime because the Yu-Gi-Oh anime was more darker than the GX anime, so it's just the difference in anime styles, I think. Yeah, but Ryukogi coming down here over a Tomato. I guess they're more afraid of the dark that's coming out as opposed to the light. But honestly, if it was me, I might have actually attributed over the Shining Angel because now Ben Labs can potentially get out of DD Warrior Lady. DD Warrior Lady clears Koki in a way that, you can't bring it back off like Book of Life, for instance. And that's a bit awkward for you. So, I guess there is also the argument that you want to use up your opponent's DD Warrior Ladies now and just sit behind like a Spirit Reaper for later. So that's a potential thing as well. But I don't know. I probably just would have wanted to oh wow, okay, well this is just going to be really brutal for Machu Picchu here. It looks like a Chaos Monster is coming down. And it's BLS.
He's using priority.
Yep. And that is brutal. Yeah, this is rough because now they can just get in for 15 with the DD Whirly, keep poking in. Not really too many good ways to deal with the Blackluster Soldier because creature swap, Ben Labs will just give them the DD Warrior Lady, and if you want to clear the DD Warrior Lady, then you've got to banish one of your own monsters. So it's kind of rough for them. And any monster that you commit here without hitting into the Warrior Lady is just going to get banished by the BLS. So it's kind of a bit of a hard lock to break.
Why did Ben summon the Luster Soldier in defense?
I guess they're worried.
It's not,
yeah. I don't really
not
know.
gonna matter now,
Force.
but because if he had a way to summon a second Koki, he can attack with the Koki into the Luster Soldier. Koki survives, Luster Soldier not.
Yeah, maybe
for example,
it's just the goat goat habits on the mind. And it is something that like I think a
Right.
lot of players will have to break out of, because like a lot of time people bring out the Chaos Monster in defense because of Mirror Force, right? But no Mirror Force in this format,
Right.
so you don't have to worry about that. Call can bring back a Black Leather Soldier here. The issue is that then Machu Picchu can just pop it again in main 2. But still, you know, you're surviving a turn, I guess. But maybe better to
Right.
use the call next turn.
This is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like a misplay. Why would he do that?
Yeah, I think it's just to block the attack. But again, you know, Tribe can...
Oh
Creature
my god,
swap,
that's
actually.
even worse.
Yeah, that is brutal.
That's
Yeah, it must have forgotten about the swap, or just thought that, you know, Machu Picchu was going to waste another card from hand
Spanish.
to pop the BLS. But yeah, that is rough.
Hmm.
I mean, to be fair, if they'd called next turn, then they still would have been able to do that sort of thing. Yeah, I forgot about the swap. And that's something that, like, it can be tough to keep track of, like, everything in the hand, especially when, like, you've got a line in your mind and you're focusing on that. You're trying to play around certain things. But yeah, this is a really rough spot for Ben Labs to be in. And it really shows some of the power of Creature Swap here. But what will Machu Picchu do now? Will they commit more to board, or will they just sit on that BLS? Now, this could actually backfire for them a little bit if Ben Labs has a Compulse
Oh
to
no.
bounce the BLS. But the TT will also deal with the whole board here. I think this honestly was the correct play, though, if you're Machu Picchu, because you do know that Ben Labs is playing Compulse, right? And so you don't necessarily want to give them time to draw into Compulse, or if they've got Compulse in hand, you want to rip a card out of hand, or if they Compulse the BLS, you want to rip that out of hand. You know, there are a bunch of potential ways in which that works out well. The only real way in which it doesn't work out is if they've got TT set, and they did indeed have TT set. But you're still in a good spot. Ben Labs is still down on cards relatively. Solomon Turtle, honestly, I don't hate it here. The thing is, this could really backfire because Book of Life is in this deck, and Book of Life can easily revive cards from grave. But it looks like Machu Picchu does not have those right now. But I'm going to set, pass back to Machu Picchu, and we'll see what happens here. Machu Picchu, we do know about the Morphing Jar in hand, so they could go for Morphing Jar. But they might not want to give Ben Labs the new cards. And indeed, they just set one back or pass back to Ben Labs. You could also argue...
MJar's in the... MJar's in the GY.
Grave. Yeah, they
Look.
pitched it. They pitched it off Tribe. Yeah. Never mind. Yeah. You see, it's tough. It's tough to keep track of things for me, too. Yeah, always good to check the graveyards. Call going for... probably the Turtle. That's the best target here, because if you bring back the Reaper, then the Reaper will pop itself with the call. So yeah. You don't need to worry about properly summoned with Pyramid Turtle, because Pyramid Turtle can be normal summoned or set. You can... that only applies to monsters like BLS, where they have to be special summoned first. Or like fusion monsters as well, for instance. So yeah, they can indeed call this monster back. It's like how if you would like discard it from like card destruction or a Geki break or something, then you can still call it back even though it wasn't summoned originally. Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky ruling for like the special summon monsters, like because it's not like really listed anywhere. It's kind of like just one of those rulings you have to learn. But yeah, just know like that only really applies to monsters that must first be special summoned in some way. Yeah.
We finally see a gravity bind. This is pretty interesting now.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about the gravity bind, because we haven't seen too many like level 3 or lower monsters out of Ben Labs. But maybe the idea is that gravity bind gets your opponent to waste removal on it, and then you basically have cleared your own floodgate, and then you can do stuff with that. So a bit of a tricky situation to be in for sure. Yeah. Oh, this may make me a fake Yu-Gi-Oh fan, but I actually have not read Yu-Gi-Oh! R since that was brought up in the chat. I need to read Yu-Gi-Oh! R because I've heard it's very interesting, but I've not read that. So you know, I'm a fake fan. I need to get on that. But Kaiku coming out here. Kaiku will, I believe, prevent Book of Life from being activated, or will you be able to activate Book of Life but just not banish the card from grave? I don't actually know. Oh, Mystic Swordsman level 2.
Banish.
Hmm?
Cannot banish from either graveyard is what Kaiku says. So
Yeah, well,
you cannot
will.
activate Book of Life.
So you can't activate it at
No,
all.
no. Usually you have to be able to resolve cards fully. Like there's some exceptions, but usually like an exception would be like Swords of Revealing Light, where you can activate it even if the opponent does not have a face down monster. Right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And
That's like a relic from early Yu-Gi-Oh card design, and Ceasefire is like that too. But usually you have to be able to resolve fully.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense. And it's probably better that you can't just waste cards and do things.
Right.
But yeah, Jinzo does out the Gravity Bind here.
What was with the card destruction just now?
That was a misclick, apparently.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, you can attack under bind with Jinzo, because Jinzo will negate the bind. So, this is a little bit awkward because Ryukoki can come out and crash into Jinzo. So there's actually an argument to not attacking a Pyramid Turtle here with the Kaiku. But also, if you want to get in damage and also banish from grave, like if you want to prevent your opponent from Book of Lifing the Spirit Reaper, then maybe that's an option as well. It's tough to say. It's definitely a decision for Ben Labs to make here. It looks like they will indeed attack into the Pyramid Turtle, dealing that additional damage. I mean, also, Machu Picchu is only at 1,600 now. So, makes some sense to do that. It looks like they're going to banish the Swordsman level 2 and the Spirit Reaper there. So Machu Picchu will be able to bring out a Ryukoki, and they probably will do that. Oh, they're going for Vampire Lord. Okay. Maybe
they don't have another.
Yeah, that must be it. Yeah.
It's like the only logical explanation.
Yeah, they either don't have another or it's in their hand, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, because I feel like for these Dead Rat sort of decks, you probably want to play multiple Koki. Like, I feel like, honestly, Koki is a lot better than Lord. Because, like, what is Lord... You know, what destruction is Lord really coming back from, right? It's summon and damage step, so TT can't be used on it. Raigeki, Darkhold, those are gone. So, realistically, the destruction that Lord is taking is probably, like, Sakuretsu Armor. But, like, if it gets Sakuretsu Armored, then, like, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't even Sakuretsu Armor the Vampire Lord, probably, you know? I'd probably just, you know, try and clear it through battle or other ways.
No. Like, why is he saying trap?
Maybe to mill out Gravity Binds or mill out Compulses or something like that.
Yeah, but, like, with Jinzo on field, all traps are dead anyway. And...
Yeah. I'm very curious his plan for clearing the Jinzo.
Right.
There was a Koki in hand. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah. That makes sense. And that is the risk of Dead Rat decks. You are playing tribute monsters that can break up your hand, potentially, which is always unfortunate when it happens. So, Dracosac, we're unsure at this point how warped by chaos these strategies are. But from this locals, we've seen some very interesting stuff that definitely is not just all around chaos. Now, chaos could definitely win the entire thing, and because it is very strong. We see right now BLS coming back again, potentially banishing something. But that must have been a misclick. Yeah, I mean, Sakuretsu can't even be activated under Jinzo. So yeah, exactly. But so chaos strategies still very strong, but we've seen a lot of spice here, and so I am definitely anticipating a lot of very interesting strategies coming up in the tournament. So I'm hoping that it isn't too warped by chaos. I don't think it will be, but I think it'll probably take until the big tournament to really figure out how warped by chaos it is. But that's what makes it so fun, right? Like, we're in definitely like a very much uncharted waters, and we are the ones doing the charting. And I'm very excited to see how this tournament goes and, you know, how the meta sort of shakes out from it. Because if you look at the past, oh yeah, he did forget Koki's effect, because Koki does stop. No, wait, it still would have been game, because what happens is Koki, I believe Koki will kill the BLS, but BLS will also kill the Koki, right? You could also just, yeah. Is that how it works? I don't have Koki on field here
Yeah.
right now to look at, but
Of course. Because it's like in damage step, you have damage calculation. So how much damage is dealt, if any.
yeah.
And then the monster is marked for destruction.
Mhm.
And then, it's sent to the GY, and that's when Koki still can use the effect.
Yeah. So then the Jindo would just be able to attack in, even if the BLS gets popped. So,
Right.
yeah. And there's no reason for Benlabs to attack him with Jinzo first because you want to keep the trap shut off. Because that's what's losing you the game at that point, is if your opponent has a trap to deal with that. So, yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, it didn't matter though, yeah. But yeah, I'm really
I mean, you might still want to DM them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Just
they might know it
just
though,
to make sure
right?
they might know.
Because like either way it was game. So I'm gonna assume that they knew, but if they didn't, then we'll see that potentially in later games. But yeah, it is a potential other benefit to Koki is that it can clear BLS. It's kind of a jank way to clear BLS, but another reason to potentially bring out BLS in attack when you bring it out, because if you bring it out in defense, your opponent has a Koki, attacks Koki into the BLS, then that will destroy the BLS and leave your opponent with the Koki left. So good to keep in mind. And some very interesting interactions that maybe wouldn't come up all that often, but are good to know when they do.
Seems to be listening to the stream.
Yeah, I've been trying to not lead them one way or another too much. I've been discussing certain things, but at the same time, I think the biggest thing maybe was discussing whether to attack in with Kaiku or not. But they chose to attack in as opposed to not attack in, which I was sort of leaning toward not attacking in. So it ultimately didn't matter there, I think. So but yeah, it's always a balance to sort of be well, talking about the potential things that can happen, but also not trying to, lead on certain players to certain strategies and influence the game, But yeah, I mean, it's nice because since we're still in the beginning stage of this format, we can just mainly talk about the format as a whole as well. And just talk about how cool these decks are because we are seeing some very cool innovations with these decks. Looks like Machu did not open with a hand rip like Ben Labs did last game. So always unfortunate when that happens. Although they could have opened with Dust Shoot. Dust Shoot is in this format just like it is in GOAT. So it is something that people can potentially play. Yep, and speak of the devil, There it is. Dust Shoot coming down. We'll be able to shuffle back a monster into the deck, get a peek at the hand, know what Ben Labs is working with. Yeah, so pretty good here. I'll have to see what they go for. It is kind of interesting playing Dust Shoot in a deck playing Morphing Jar as well, because that kind of conflicts. But at the same time, if you draw Dust Shoot late and you go for Morphing Jar then you can use Dust Shoot at that point. So not the worst thing in the world. Looks like Ben Labs has TT, Double Warrior Lady, Donzalug, Solemn, and Draining Shield. So very interesting hand. If you're Machu,
Draining Shield is pretty jank.
It is pretty jank. We saw it in game one. It's very interesting. Because Draining Shield often doesn't see play for similar reasons that Magic Cylinder doesn't see play, where just negating the attack and doing a life point manipulation isn't really as high impact to a lot of other traps in the format. But it's still very interesting. It's cool to see people experimenting. And, that's why we're in this locals, right? To see people experiment with different techs. And so it's just cool to see that, happen in real time, basically.
But at least Magic Cylinder can win you the game on the spot.
Yeah.
Draining Shield? I don't know. So what is this implying?
Well, the Draining Shield might be for the Solemns, right? Because you've got Solemn to cut your life points in half, and you want to be able to gain back life in addition to that. That might be why they're going.
That might be.
Yeah. Looks like TT's coming down
but
there.
Still, yeah.
Yeah.
But still, that's not a good trade. You're trading a card advantage for life points. I don't know. Usually you say rule of thumb, a card is worth 2,000 life points, right?
Yeah.
But of course it depends.
There is also
on the
the idea that
context.
like if you Draining Shield a BLS, then you gain 3,000 and also you cut off its second attack too. But yeah, I think honestly, like for me personally, I wouldn't necessarily put Draining Shield in there, but I'm happy to see Ben Labs experimenting with it. Because experimentation is the way to do it, you know. That's like, you know, theory only gets you so far, and actually playing some things is very cool. Yeah, also like Ben Labs is playing a 45 card deck as well, as CS points out, which is very interesting. It makes some sense because they are playing like recruiters, like the Shining Angels and the Mystic Tomatoes and stuff. Going for Solemn on the card of save return is interesting, but I guess you're cutting off your opponent from going for draws, but I feel like you just Solemn the revival card here, right?
Yeah, definitely, because now they still have the revival card anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the idea is that like DD Warley can deal with Pyramid Turtle because that's what would be revived off of like Book of Life, right? But yeah, I think ultimately, yeah, it's definitely interesting. Yeah, I mean the zombie deck would be super cool if it won a locals. It would definitely be a sign that like, you know, if people are doubting that the format has like a certain level of diversity to it, then this would be a sign that it definitely does. DD Worley banishing that giant rat there, getting that off the field, preventing a recruiting there. And we know that Ben Labs has a Draining Shield in the macro, and I think that's all we know. So they could potentially have like other cards here to deal with whatever Machu Picchu brings out. But now is the time to really get aggressive, it seems like. Well, oh, going for Cypher Soldier here. Bringing in the anti-warrior tech. Very cool to see. Now, no warriors on Ben Labs' field right now, but, you know, you're still getting in for damage, or trying to, with this Draining Shield, preventing that attack from really doing too much. Honestly, I think saving the Draining Shield there probably would have been better, because if you've got a monster on field that you don't want your opponent to hit into, then going for Draining Shield there would probably be good. But, you know, getting life points is not terrible. If you think about it in terms of the sort of what you said, where like one card is worth 2,000 life points, that Draining Shield essentially got Ben Labs like 2,700 life points, because they didn't lose the attack from the Cypher Soldier, and they also gained the attack of the Cypher Soldier. So that's one way to potentially conceptualize it. But yeah, it's still
yeah, still rough.
Yeah.
Rough spot.
I also like the name Kinetic Soldier better, CS. I think that it was just cool. I guess that, you know, it's part of the Cypher archetype, so like that's why they put it, but it doesn't really synergize with the Cypher archetype at all. So yeah, not really sure why they kept it that way. Tomato attacking into Reaper.
They could have they could have given Kinetic Soldier one of these, you know, clauses called a name condition or something like that.
Yeah, it's like
Summon
it's
Skull,
always treated as a Cypher monster.
always treated, right. It's like maybe a more elegant solution then.
Yeah, I'd agree. They also might have just been like, no one cares about Kinetic Soldier. You know, it's like a DM era card, a little bit, you know, outdated, so no one's gonna play it. So we can just rename it however we want. But yeah. Yeah, Cypher Soldier needs the OCG name, I believe.
Gravity Bind coming in clutch.
Yeah.
Yeah. This could save him.
Yeah, honestly. Like, this will buy Ben Labs time. You know, Spirit Reaper could hit in, but they're setting another monster here. So that'll buy them even further time. And very tricky. Yeah, if they had done it earlier, we wouldn't have lost Frog the Jam. Exactly. They would have just said on the card, this card is not treated as a frog monster. But yeah, very tough spot for Machu Picchu to be in. I assume if they brought in like Cypher Soldier, I wonder if they brought in like spell and trap removal as well, for the Gravity Bind here. Painful coming down. So I'll send 5 from deck.
Indeed, very interesting decks, says CS.
Yeah.
CS, are you playing the locals too? or are you just lurking?
I'm not sure if they played
Because
the
like I've seen the name.
yeah.
I've seen the name come up like every stream.
Yeah.
So
Well, they're a very
I
frequent
wonder.
watcher, but they might not have time to play the locals occasionally. But hopefully they'll join the monthly tournament. But yeah, uh, but yeah, for anyone out there, there's no like pressure to join the locals or the tournaments if you watch. You can feel fine just watching, but it'd be cool if you join a tournament at some point because like it's cool to like just have as many people join the tournaments as possible just to get as many people experimenting and trying decks out. But not everyone has the time, so it's perfectly fine if you don't want to do that as well. But yeah, the tournaments are always fun though. So I encourage it if like you're on the fence about playing or not. I encourage you to try it out one time, because they're always fun. It's always a cool group of people playing, and always very interesting decks that get sent. So it looks like Painful here, sending Jinzo, Comfy, Forceful, Trap Dust Shoot, Trap Dust Shoot. I feel like you just give him Dust Shoot because like Dust Shoot is kind of dead on this board. I mean, maybe there's like telegraphing like Morphing Jar, right? But yeah. Oh yeah, they're in the Discord and they've been in some of the videos. So yeah. And always a pleasure to have people in the videos. Cause it's always cool to see. Yeah, that is a good point, Illustrator. You're always more likely to see jank in the locals than the monthlies. But sometimes, people bring a deck to locals and they're like, this did better than I thought. And then they bring it to the monthlies and it does pretty decently in the monthlies too. So it's like the locals jank to tournament jank pipeline, so cool to see that there. Pre-Mac coming down here.
That's like it's like the catapult turtle effect, right?
Yeah.
Because like there have been bunches of catapult turtle decks winning the locals.
Yeah, and so people bring him in, and I think Soul did very well with the Catapult Turtle deck in the Treasure Tournament as well, I believe.
Right,
So,
he won the monthly.
yeah, and that's exactly the pipeline it works. So it definitely works out very well. Oh, okay, yeah, the water deck, yeah. Water is so cool. So thank you for repping that deck. I didn't really feature it much in Fiber and Breaker because there were just other decks that were a bit stronger to contend with. But still very, very cool stuff. So thank you for bringing it. Going for the tribe over the tomato there. Now, you might be wondering like why they do that because, whatever they bring out off tomato might be a bit more annoying to pop with tribe. The reason to do this is because like there's no like Witch or Sangan. So like Ben Labs can't bring out a Witch or a Sangan here, which would be really annoying for tribe to pop. But yeah, bringing out a Don Luke. Now, if Ben Labs was playing a Dark Machine with 1500 or less attack, then that could have been an issue because you would have had to pop the Jinzo. But I can't really think of any good Dark Machines with 1500 or less attack in this format. Yeah, Water Reasoning is very cool in this format because you've got Daedalus, right? Daedalus is level 7, not level 8. So you can bring that out a bit more easily and do some really fun stuff. So yeah, I encourage Water Reasoning Gate experimentation. It's very cool. Lakunga also as well. You pair that with Dimfuse, and it's very awesome there. Fenrir is a card you can play as well too, but Fenrir is probably a bit too cope. If you're playing one of the like special summon banishes, maybe Aqua Spirit would be good too. But yeah, there's definitely potential for a Water Reasoning Gate deck. Unfortunately, it looks like Ben Labs has timed out. Hopefully, okay, they're back. DB has been a bit glitchy lately, but luckily, still functional and can potentially do things. So it looks like Serpent's getting banished. Very good banish there. And also a Pyramid Turtle there. So pretty good hit.
Actually, like the last Warrior format tournament was won by Water, but it was Water control.
Yeah, so it'd be cool to see Water Aggro take a win potentially.
Right.
Yeah, and I hope people bring the Water Control deck. Oh, that's that's 42-45, so not quite the end of the game here. But if they had another monster, it would have been the end of the game here. So, that extra life points they gained off Draining Shield, keeping them alive. Very funny to see. So yeah, Monster Gate, yeah, Aqua Spirit is good for Monster Gate fodder. That is very true. So, Snatch Shield bumping up Ben Labs' life points to 1950, but that one draw has to be something good. Might not quite do it here. Setting one, passing back to Machu. Bit of a tough spot to be in. Well, Change of Heart's just going to wrap it up. Yep, that's just going to be the end of the game. Yeah, I mean, Change of Heart, busted card. So that is one of the sort of like, I can potentially see people being annoyed at Change. But yeah, Change of Heart is very, very good in this format. And we see why there. And it does lead to more like Soul Control or like, you know, zombie decks or things like that. So yeah, Tribe, unfortunately, no cards in hand to use off the Tribe. And yeah. So very, very good games, though, between both players. I mean, that was a 2-1 win as opposed to a 2-0. So very cool stuff. A lot of intense matches throughout this tournament. And now we're getting into the final match between Aomine and Machu Picchu there. So I'm very excited to dive into this match and see how it goes. So very cool stuff. Yeah, I'm excited.
One more fun fact about water, if we have the time, right?
Mhm.
So this is warrior format, and like question came up in chat, like what's the historical significance? So it's tied to some Shonen Jump championships, of course, but like in Europe, in Germany specifically, it's tied to Pharaoh Tour, which was like our equivalent of Shonen Jumps, and like the whole Pharaoh Tour of that year was warrior format. And what's funny is one of the tournaments was won by Umiruka Shift. So a water deck, an aggressive water deck.
And Shift is a very interesting card. Like, were they playing actually like the trap card Shift?
No. No, it's called Shift, but it plays Return from a different dimension because you shift the cards like between the different zones.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. For a second, I was like, shit, I'm not sure how Shift exactly applies here, but like, cool to see people playing that card. But yeah,
No.
that card's a bit.
That's just
bad.
the name. But yeah, Shift is bad for sure.
Yeah.
But water is like, water has
It's got
potential.
legs. It's
Definitely.
We've seen it pop up here.
Right.
And yeah.
So we have at least like two water decks winning warrior events, one historical and one in recent times. And they're both fairly different in both.
We got to see if the trend continues. I mean, I'm definitely going to be featuring some water decks on my channel as I cover Warrior. So it should be fun. And as CS says, Warrior is a lot more fun than expected. It's not the weird cousin of GOAT. And I hope that more people sort of like see these videos and sort of take that away from it as well. Because I mean, I've been having a blast just watching these games. And so I can only imagine how fun they've been to play. Very, very cool stuff going on here.
Yeah. Someone get JDZ into playing Warrior.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I know that I watched JDZ was on a podcast with Janjo, and I know that they said that they weren't really as interested in like Warrior, like, you know, Chaos and stuff. They'd be more interested in like Android and stuff. But I think that honestly, like, Warrior is showing itself to be very, very interesting and like a very interesting counterpoint to GOAT. So definitely something to.
Oh, I remember he said he didn't like Chaos because of like Chaos and Paradragon, which is understandable. But Chaos and Paradragon is gone.
Yeah. So potential option there for Warrior. Yeah. I'll see if you know, I'm planning on collabing with a bunch of GOAT creators in when I cover GOAT format. So hopefully we can get JDZ on the channel. Maybe playing Warrior, maybe playing Yana, maybe playing some of the older formats there. It'd be fun to see. So yeah, the more people we can get into these old formats, the better, in my opinion. But yeah, well, we got the last game going. Okay, they need a 5-minute break. That is perfectly fine. Because like playing all these games back to back, it can definitely be very, very intense. So no worries taking a little bit of a break. As long as it's not like too long. But yeah, just, you know, to sort of compose yourself, go into finals fresh. And I believe this is a pretty big locals finals for both players because I believe neither of them have actually won a locals in the past.
No.
So we're gonna have a new locals legend here.
So Aomine like played a couple of tournaments. I remember that, but Machu Picchu, I believe it's his first time playing locals.
Yeah, and I don't think either of these players are have won a locals, right? Or did or
No,
yeah. So either way, we're gonna get a local legend
and
here, and
and also like this might be the first European finals. I believe both of them are European.
okay, I'm glad I hosted it at a time that worked a bit better for the Europeans out there, to get some new blood in the locals and yeah, very powerful European finals here. So very cool to see. Cylinder is still at 1 CS. I don't know why it's still at 1. I think honestly they could bump it up to 3. I do know why it's at 1 because they're worried about burn, but like it realistically probably could be bumped up more and it would ultimately be fine. But maybe with all the spell and trap removal sort of neutered in the format, right? Because you don't have triple MST, maybe Cylinder 3 becomes oppressive. Who knows? But we'll have to see.
People would have to start main deck Decree.
Yeah, main deck Decree, main deck Dust Tornado. We did see a main deck Decree actually from Aratos earlier on in the tournament when they faced off against Machu Picchu in a very intense match. So very cool to see.
Aros was playing
Yeah, Aratos was
Monarchs,
playing
right?
like a soul control deck. So like playing all the Monarchs and things like that. And it was really, really interesting. So I'm curious to see as more people experiment with that as well. But yeah, United We Stand is definitely a weird hit on the list. I think probably they banned it because like, they were worried, oh, we, banned Raigeki and Dark Hole, so there will be bigger boards now. So United We Stand can boost up monsters more consistently and to larger heights. But realistically, I think United We Stand being limited would just be fine. Like I don't think it would really change much. But I mean, maybe it would. I mean, you do have Iron Blacksmith Kotetsu to search it out, so maybe that would actually be secretly broken. Who can say? But yeah, I'm curious if people will like do more hypothetical formats around this time. Because there was the big hypothetical format with like the August ban list, for instance, and I could see people being interested in hypothetical sort of changes to the very first ban list in the game, but that would be something for later. Yeah. But I am very glad to see that the October limited list actually makes the game somewhat more playable than the August ban list might, because the August ban list, I mean, triple DMOC format sounds fun, right? Like it would probably be fun for the people playing it, but it's not necessarily the biggest. It wouldn't probably be the most popular format competitively. So
They wanted people to buy more IOC and AST boosters
clearly,
to
yeah,
get those cards. Yeah.
gotta get those DMOCs, gotta get those monster gates, and I mean, to be fair, the deck is very fun to combo with. But it's just like too oppressive, I think. Too quick, too aggressive, just too good. I don't actually know. Like for Battle City Amsterdam, yeah, that was done in like Amsterdam format, right? For
Yes.
Almine is playing more of a chaos deck, like more of a standard chaos deck, I think. But for Amsterdam format, I'm not actually sure. Like, were there a bunch of like DMOC gate decks running around?
Yes. So I read a little bit of the coverage, and like the thing is, it was a tournament held in Amsterdam, but that's very close to Germany, and we Germans we love Amsterdam anyway. So like many Germans participated as well, and the German matter, what it said in the coverage, the German matter was more like shifted towards reasoning gate type of decks. But then what the Dutch players did is that they pre-sided more, and so this completely kept Germany out of the tops, I believe, or maybe like if there was any German players in the top 16 or top 32, they didn't play reasoning because not a single reasoning deck made the top cut.
Interesting.
Surprisingly, like it was a surprise to many people at the time. because like I even read a historic deck list on ETCG, which is like the German Pojo,
Mhm.
and it was posted by Goblin Meister, so that's David Kretschmer, who is the German champion of 2005.
Hmm.
And like his biggest claim actually is third place at Worlds. He's the guy who played Machines at Worlds.
Oh, wow.
So very strong player. And he also played FTK at the time. And he said the deck, in his opinion, has a very high win rate, like 70-80%.
Mm.
But apparently, like the Dutch found a solution to that problem.
Yeah, I wonder what they pre-sided. Was it just like anti-spell, or was it something else?
Good question. I don't remember, but the coverage is extant through kparovich.com, right?
Okay, so that's something to potentially look into then. Is it in German or is it
Yeah.
okay, so I wouldn't be able to read
No,
it, but
it's no. There's a English coverage.
oh,
Battles in
okay.
the Amsterdam was like the biggest tournament of its time, and it was even covered by like U.S. media, so by metagame.com.
Mm.
Right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure it was covered by like German and Dutch media as well. So there's probably more coverage,
Mm.
but I haven't really dug into that.
Yeah, no, that makes
I haven't
sense.
gone on it myself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough,
It's just
you know.
something,
Yeah.
yeah, something that came up. Like, what's tough?
There's the research aspect of it. Like it's so tough, like digging through all those
Yeah,
old sources and like finding all the different instances of coverage, especially the more obscure sources. Um, so
no, for
you
sure.
know,
But like in my experience, like if you're looking for 2004, you can already find everything online. It's just going to be tough, as you say. But like 2003 and prior is like impossible. You need magazines,
mm,
you need print media,
yeah, and
right?
that stuff is vanishingly rare now. As time goes on, and we get further from that time. That sort of media just it naturally has a tendency to disappear. But
Mm. So, like CS is asking, did the European meta differ from the US metagame always? Well, the thing is, Yu-Gi-Oh was published in the US, I believe, May 2002, right?
I think
And
so.
in Europe, it was published about 1 year later, and not every European country got the first booster set at the same time. So the UK, they received their LOB cards in December, but we in Germany, we received them in March of the following year, so 2003, and then like Italian players received them even later. Like fun fact, the first national championships in Europe, they were all held at the same time, early June. But the Italian players, they didn't even have cards in the local language. The Dutch players, they didn't have cards in the local language.
Oh wow,
They don't have to this day. So they were just allowed to play with British cards or whatever European language cards.
that's kind of wild
But
because
like,
I
that's
assumed
kind of wild.
I assume it would have taken longer because it's like you got to translate everything. But nope, it's just like, you know, oh, we'll just use the English cards. That's kind of weird. But
Like they had to, because I imagine they like couldn't meet some kind of deadline or something like that,
mm,
but they already arranged for that to be a national championship. But
yeah,
like from what I understood, like the Italian championship, for example, was not very big for obvious reasons.
yeah. Well, it's
The
interesting
German
because like,
championship,
yeah,
yeah, the German championship was like 400 people, like the biggest tournament in Europe probably at the time, something like that.
yeah. You'd think like oh, 4-star Ladybug of Doom was actually a very interesting card against zombies in particular. Kind of wild to see it in game one. But
Oh,
yeah, I guess it's
and
a potential board wipe, and in a format without many
mm,
board wipes, it just is also incidentally very very good against zombies too. Um, but yeah, I would have expected like if any European countries were the ones to get like basically you'd have to play it with English cards. I would expect it would have been Netherlands, the Dutch, and the Germans, because those are the two languages that are closest to English. Like, if you go back linguistically. But
Yeah,
yeah,
like it's very easy to learn English if you start with Dutch or German,
yeah.
for sure.
And I think from the English side of things, I think Dutch is supposed to be the easiest language to learn as an English speaker. Yeah, but
Yeah, I would believe that.
yeah, for some reason it just didn't work out that way in terms of the translations, I guess.
Well, the Dutch people, like, they're known for being very good English speakers because, like, the thing is, in Germany, back in the day, for example, we had MTV2, and I'm sure the Dutch, they had MTV2, but what I heard is, in my country, in Germany, everything was dubbed in German. In the Netherlands, they just keep it in English. You just gotta learn English, and that's
Yeah.
it.
I kind of wish in the
Which is much
US,
better. Yeah.
because
I mean, just subtitle everything. It's the best system.
yeah, and that's the best way to learn, in my opinion. Like, just watching a lot of subtitled media,
Right.
like alongside learning the language, because then you get like the passive listening skills sort of ingrained.
Right.
So yeah, besides just like moving to a country where like everyone speaks that language, that's like the next best thing. Saku on the turtle, very very good Saku there. Yeah, it's brutal.
Funny that the ladybug survived the attack
Yeah,
because, like, Permit Turtle just happens to be like the only recruiter with 1,200 attack.
yeah, it really is just like Ladybug is the perfect
Very
out to
cool.
zombies. It's just very funny. And we got Ladybug beats, Ladybug
Yeah,
Serpent beats.
we're going to poke for 7 rounds.
Yep, there's a 7-turn clock. It's not terrible to have as a clock. Um, I mean, if they can just protect these monsters, then they got a good thing going. Card safe return is going to be pretty good here if they've got another revival card. Looks like they do indeed. They've got the pre-mat. So that will be fine by dat option 455. That option might also be on a bit of a sort of Raigeki break package with the Night Assailants, just like we saw Barcode was on. Because they did send a bunch of flip monsters. I mean, Apprentice Magician and the flip monster, but they sent Magician of Faith, Old Vindictive. Those are both pretty good. But looks like they don't have the Raigeki break for the pre-mat, or else they probably would have fired it. And of course, you take out the bigger threat, the 4-star Ladybug of Doom.
Right.
Actually, legitimately the bigger threat because if you take out the Serpent, then that option could just switch to defense and wall you off. But Saku will deal with that, and now you're in like a weird spot here. If they drew a monster off that draw, you could set something, but besides that, nothing else.
Like, how many revival spells are there anyway in this format? Like, is playing Card or Safe Return worth it?
Yeah, there's only like 5 really. There's pre-mat, there's call, and then there's triple Book of Life. So you could argue that's not really worth it. Now if they're playing stuff like Spear Cretin, then that increases the amount of draw cards, but it's kind of awkward because you can't activate card safe return in the damage step. So you've got to like
in the previous round we saw him main deck Vampire Lord, right? And Vampire Lord triggers return.
So that's a good way
So,
to pull off the card safe returns as well.
Oh man, if only he had Vampire Lord had it, because like double Sakuretsu
Yeah, it's
is
brutal.
kind of
Yeah. I mean, Sakuretsu I think is going to be a big card this format. Because again, like removal's sort of at a premium, and you don't have like mirror forces, so you need some form of battle trap. But yeah, forceful as well. Oof, it's gonna be rough. We do know about the Ryukoki in hand, so then it's just what is the remaining card in hand? Maybe another tribute monster. Honestly, maybe Machu Picchu wants that card back in the deck to pair with a turtle later. But we'll have to see what that last remaining card is. I assume that option's just gonna leave Machu with the Ryukoki because what's Machu gonna do with that Ryukoki, right? We'll have to see here. Also, any creature swaps.
Set a top deck Spirit Reaper.
Yes, top deck Spirit Reaper would be really
Yeah.
good. But Machu Picchu probably has more bad top decks than good top decks at this point. Setting back the Ryu, that's interesting. Maybe the other card in hand is like
Machu
Vampire
Picchu
Lord?
is also playing,
Yeah, maybe
is
there's
also playing like Giant Red, right? So
Yeah.
there's like a lot of combat cards here.
Okay, swap in hand. That's what it was. Yeah. I was gonna say swap is a terrible top deck here because you can't control what you swap, and your opponent will just give you Serpent. So that's really good out to swap as well.
Right.
Just a lot of rough top decks for Machu Picchu here. Yeah, not good options. Yeah, and they're just passing. And so dat option's literally doing Ladybug beats, 1100 a turn. Don't need to play into TT. And yeah, they're not playing into TT indeed. Tagging in for 1100. And it's gotta feel bad if you're Machu Picchu. It's like, damn, nothing I can do about this, And that is the risk of playing more like combo-oriented decks, right? Like, Dead Ride isn't necessarily the most combo-oriented deck in the world, but still, you get cards that don't do anything on their own, So if you wind up in a bad situation and you just keep drawing those cards, then you're in a tough spot. That option's thinking hard here. Going for Dust Tornado on one of these sets. That likely is the TT, I believe, because that was set a while back. So going for the TT to do a bigger push potentially. Machu also could have masked where the TT was. That is also an option. Oh, going for emergency provisions. Okay, that also explains more of the card to safe return because the idea here is that like card safe return only gets you limited value, but then later on you send it with the emergency provisions and you gain back life points from it too. So yeah, it looks like they are indeed going to send the card safe return as well. Now they're probably thinking about whether they want to send the last card here too, whether that is actually going to do anything, but it looks like they're just going to leave that there. And yeah. But Dekoichi is going to be a very good flip there. Drawing a card. This is 2,500 damage on board right now. If they've got a 1,500 attack, oh well, Jinzo will also do it if they're going for Jinzo. If they're going for Jinzo, honestly, I'm kind of surprised they didn't go for it earlier. So maybe it's not Jinzo. But I guess they want to use up their Dust Tornado before. Oh yeah, Mobius. Yeah, Mobius is going to wrap up the game as well. So yep, Mobius pops the remaining set. Likely will be the end of the game. Yep, that's just a skill drain. No point firing it. And yeah, that will be 4,600 damage here. So yeah, there was potential reasoning to like, send the skill drain as well off emergency provisions. But yeah, unfortunately, was not sent. I mean, they probably still would have lost here either way because this is a very tough board to crack. And yeah, that will be the end of game one. So very exciting game one. We saw the zombie deck stumble a little bit, but that will happen in these sort of more combo-oriented decks. And it definitely can come back in games 2 and 3. So we'll have to see how it does there. Be a very interesting experimentation with some of these cards here. 4-star Ladybug of Doom, very neat tech, and very unexpected. I mean, as you saw there, Machu Picchu just attacked in the set, thinking like this is probably going to be fine. And it was 4-star Ladybug of Doom, and that managed to control the entire game from that point on, really. So tricky stuff for sure. Yeah, not really sure what they could have done there, honestly, differently. It's like Ritual Armor kind of just shuts off everything, really. I mean, you could have argued that they should have creature swapped the turtle after they brought it back, but then realistically, they had no way of hitting over it beyond that if it was Sack Ritual Armor in the back row, so not really much they could have done there. And also, they would have just sent Serpent to grave. That option would have gotten back Serpent, so realistically, that option's going up on more cards than Machu Picchu is, so yeah, tough one.
Like in hindsight, you could have like walled up behind your own turtle and then draw into better cards.
Yeah, that might have been the play, but you could also argue that like the more time you give that option to get into things, like the better it is for them too, and
right.
Like your board is easier to break. So yeah, I mean there are differing options on that. Also, you've got TT in the back row, And you know that option knows that you've got TT in the back row. So like, even if they do a Saku, then like you're basically preparing for a later TT because you have one less monster on board. You can go for TT more easily, right? So it probably is better just to bring back the turtle, attack into the Sakus to bait that out. So that way they don't have that remaining for after you TT the board away. It just didn't work out there because that option also played around the TT the entire time. So just a rough game, I think. Not much Machu Picchu could have really done there, I think. But that happens sometimes. And yeah, I think that like, especially when you get into these like high levels of play, no matter how good you play, if you're playing a deck that's slightly less consistent, it will come up. And we see that happen here. So yeah, cool to see zombies make it to the finals, but it might not potentially take the whole thing home. But, you know, anything can happen. You know, we've seen Machu Picchu come back from a game 1 loss before in this locals, and it could definitely happen again. So I'm curious to see what they'll do in this game here. Looks like that option's taking some time to decide, or they're just lagging more. But, you know, DB and lag, name a more iconic duo besides the duo and delinquent duo.
Right.
But we don't have to worry about that duo anymore.
I just got disconnected as well, so it might be that.
Yeah, there's some weird connection issues. Yeah, hopefully DB will. I mean, DB has dealt with these sorts of things in the past, so it's just sort of the price of you know, having a browser system for it, I think. But I still think it's
The
like
price
probably,
of it being
yeah.
the price of it being freeware.
Yeah, I mean, it's a free service. Like, I think for being a free service, this is like one of the best free services out there, honestly, you know? So yeah, he started says, I want to believe too. I think it would be really cool if zombies won the locals here. But you know, you got to temper that belief with realism too, you know? Nope, it gets sent, does not get shuffled back. Yep, there you go. So yeah, looks like they took a Saku, which is kind of interesting. Leaving them with double Kaiku, double Compulse. Compulse is a good option to bring in against a zombie deck because you send back their Ryukokis and things like that. Those cards are kind of awkward in the hand. Kaiku's good because they can't activate Book of Life. So very good cards to bring in, I think, here. Getting rid of the Saku is kind of interesting, though. I guess they're more afraid of the offensive that they mount getting stopped than the aggressive push with the Kaikus. But Potter Reed here gonna help out that option quite a bit. They're thinking. I feel like the move here is probably to summon Kaiku attack in, right? Oh, but they're setting. So maybe they drew into like Magician of Faith. That could be an option. Get back the pot for next turn. I'll have to see what Machu Picchu does in response here, because if I was Machu Picchu, that would probably be the read that I had, right? We did see Magician of Faith the previous game, but we also saw Apprentice Magician, so it could also be an Apprentice Magician that they have set. So, a bit tricky. Looks like Machu Picchu is going to set 2, pass back to that option. Could also be an old Vindictive Magician, though, and we'll have to find that out here. It is indeed the Faith. So, that Faith is going to be able to get back the pot, and that is a brutal play for that option. That option can also go for Compulse on the set monster as well. Bounce that back to hand after committing Kaiku to field. So that way, if Machu Picchu wants to TT the Kaiku, they lose their monster, and then if they don't, then Compulse bounces that monster back, and they get in for 2100. So,
But Compulse is both sides of the field, right?
yeah, they can also bounce back their own Magician.
So you can even
and set that up again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brutal.
It's this is not a good spot for Machu Picchu to be in for sure. That option definitely has the advantage here. And they're thinking. They're probably thinking about both those lines. Like I personally would probably go a bit more aggressive here, because I feel like Machu Picchu probably is sided in to like Nobleman of Crossouts and things like that, because they've seen that you're on a very flip-focused strategy. So Nobleman of Crossouts is naturally very good against that. But looks like it's going to set 3. And, oh, they're actually going to attack into the set with Magician of Faith. That's very interesting here. Having the read that's Morphing Jar maybe and trying to trigger it on their turn. Yeah. Really heads up play on Dad Option's part.
Wow.
Yeah, hitting a Jinzo, that's very good. Hitting that, well, Kogi, you don't necessarily, oh, that actually might have unbricked their hand a little bit. But, you know, again, it's better to have the Morphing Jar activate on your turn than your opponent's. So, yeah, it was a pretty good swing on Dad Option's part. So, looks like Pot of Greed coming down now, which is the correct move, you know. Looks like they didn't set a Kaiku there, so that's an unknown set monster. But the 2 back row there is double Compulse. Yeah, and there's a Forceful coming down. So you get to use the Forceful first after the Morphing Jar activation. Get to see the hand, send back what the most powerful card is. And this is a very commanding position for Dad Option to be in. Just showing how strong Magician of Faith is. Vampire Lord Serpent, Call the Haunted, Card of Safe Return, and Book of Life. That is a very interesting set of cards there. That's potentially 2 draws off the Card of Safe Return. I don't think they're too worried about Vampire Lord because they got Compulse for Vampire Lord. So you send back Vampire Lord that way. Basically make it like a little bit of a brick. But other than that, like I think you could either go for Serpent, you could go for the Revival cards. A bit of a tricky situation to be in. I feel like so if you leave them Call the Haunted, they can bring back Jinzo, which shuts off your card safe returns. So you might just want to send back Call the Haunted, leave them with card safe return. They'll get a draw there either way. But you've got your Compulses online at least, right? Because they have to get back a zombie with Book of Life. Okay, they're going for Book of Life here. That's interesting. Yeah, very... I wonder what the back row is then. They must have a way to deal with Call of the Haunted. So maybe they've got their Death Tornadoes ready to go. Maybe they've got an MST. Those are both options. And if they do have those, then that's, very good to send back the Book of Life because now they don't get a draw off card of safe return if they pop, the calls beforehand. Forceful, though, on Dad Option's hand. So, this is sort of back and forth with the Forcefuls. And this will sort of even things out on Machu Picchu's side. So both players playing with a lot of knowledge of what the other is playing. Yeah, it's a very interesting board, CS. Definitely very interesting. But that's part of what makes it so exciting. So double meta, Snatch, Swap, and Snake. That's a really good hand. Wow. That is really good. So they're going to have access to meta no matter what. So you might want to send back the Serpent. But, I mean, even if you hit over the Magician of Faith, they could have another Magician of Faith set. So it's kind of weird. Kind of a tough spot to be in. I think you probably just send back... Well, no, because they could just compulse your Morphing Jar and then go for 1,000 Eye District on the following turn. So yeah, no matter what, you're in a tough spot here. Yeah, I think you still take Serpent. But I don't know. It's really tricky. Yeah, they do take Serpent. I think that's correct because now they don't have Metamorphosis basically costs them a card to use, right? In addition to the card itself. Whereas if you use Serpent for it, you could just keep recycling the Serpent for that. So I think that's correct, but it's definitely a very tricky spot to be in. Definitely not what you want to see if you're Machu Picchu here. They're going to go for card safe return indeed. Fire that. Now, Dad Option's not going to go for that bait because they know the Call of the Haunted is in hand. And it looks like they're probably going to set the call there. I mean, that has to be call because we know that card safe return has been used up. We know the draw was forceful. So it looks like they're going to summon out this Serpent, try and attack in to the Magician of Faith. I think this Honestly, I think you also switch the Morphing Jar to attack. I think it was a misplay not to switch the Morphing Jar to attack there. Because they've got double Compulse, right? But there's no Mirror Force in this format. So you can feel fine just switching the Morphing Jar to attack, trying to get 2 hits over the Magician of Faith to cut off the meta. Because you don't really have a good way to deal with a 1,000 restrict on board. So I don't think it was a huge misplay, especially because you know about Kaiku. But I think that was a bit of a misplay there. Yeah, it looks like they're just going to pass back to that option there. So that to me has the read that the set is also a level 1, like another Magician of Faith, for instance. And that option is thinking. They're going to flip up to Koichi here. So that gets them another draw. They could, well, it doesn't really pay for them to swap anything or snatch the Morphing Jar, really. Machu's in a tough spot because if they ever commit the Vampire Lord, then the opponent can just like swap or snatch and then meta it away. Same with Jinzo. So really tough spot to be in here for Machu Picchu. They're just so restricted by Dat Option's hand. Yeah, I don't know really what the best option is for them. Dat Option, I think has just a lot of different options here. They're going to think, and I think it, makes sense to think here. You've got, a lot to consider. A lot of things you can potentially do. The clear play here, and we don't know what Dat Option's drawn, so, that will definitely change a lot. The clear play here is just, attack over the jar, deprive them of that, and, just play it simple like that. But there are some plays that they can do here if they want to get a little bit more aggressive, if they want to sort of bait out some of the back row. And we don't know what the third card here is for Dat Option. We know that there are 2 compulses there, but we don't know what the third set is. So definitely an interesting board state to consider. I feel like the third card there is Dust Tornado or MST. They might actually be thinking about Dust Tornadoing or MSTing the back row, but you don't want to do that on the call yet, because you want to save your removal for that for later. So that way they can't just chain call, bring back Jinzo, have that stick on field. Yeah, because you need the, I guess you could, and then just attack over the jar, go for creature swap, meta away the Jinzo for Ryu Senshi. You could do that, or just keep the Jinzo on field at that point. Okay, they are going to go Dust Tornado. They're going to hit one of the new back row, or not new back row, but one of the unknown back row. This might bait out something for Machu. It could potentially bait out the Call of the Haunted on the Jinzo to just get Jinzo on field, shut off that Dust Tornado. And then, yeah, it does bait out the Call of the Haunted, and it will bring out Jinzo. Now, this will cause the card Safe Return to miss timing, I believe, because the last thing that happens is Dust Tornado resolves without effect. So you won't be able to draw off this. I don't think you'll be able to draw off this because of when you can.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think they can draw.
Oh, it's optional.
Well,
what?
Yeah, I think
it's not
timing,
mandatory.
Right? I think it misses timing, right?
Yeah, what was the chain again?
The chain was Dust Tornado.
The chain is Dust Tornado.
Back row. Call the Haunted, chain link 2. So, yeah, I think they wouldn't have gotten a draw there.
No, missing the timing.
Yeah. But it's fine. I think that Dat Option's gonna win this game either way. I think that, yeah. Because what they do here is they actually have a couple options. They can snatch the Morphing Jar, then creature swap, give back the Morphing Jar, take the Jinzo, and go for damage that way. They can just snatch the Jinzo, which they're doing here, get in for damage that way, cut off the Morphing Jar. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff they can do here. Yep, and they're going to go for the Koichi over the jar, attacking directly for 2,400. And I feel like if you're a Dat Option, you want to go for the meta on the Jinzo, honestly. And you can bring out Dark Blade, the Dragon Knight. Actually, actually, there was another option they could have done here. They could have gone for meta on Jinzo, bring out Darkly the Dragon Knight, and then banish the Serpent and like maybe the Koki from Grave. So that way, at least they're not getting back Serpent. And also, the Darkly the Dragon Knight still gets over Vampire Lord if they have a way to tribute out Vampire Lord. So, yeah, I feel like that might have been the better play, especially because you've got double meta. Okay, going for Mirage here. Okay. They must have a way to deal with Mirage set, or else they wouldn't have done this, right? Because otherwise you won't be able to clear Mirage. No, they don't have a way. No, because they've got meta, double meta, swap set. Yeah, so yeah. I don't know. I don't like that sequence of plays from that option. I think they could have done something a little bit more aggressive, in a way that cut off more. Also would have allowed you to set more cards or commit more cards to field. Also would have made it so that if Machu Picchu draws like into MST or Heavy Storm, they don't get back a monster here. So yeah, I don't really like that play. I don't like that play that they did there. It might still work out for them though, but yeah, still a very tough board to break. We'll have to see what they do here, though. This is game
Right.
2.
Like, what's your opinion on Mirage of Nightmare? Because MST is at 1, and like we saw Machu Picchu main deck emergency provisions,
Yeah.
and like of course this was like a break, but
So I think it does
because, like-
kind of depend on the deck you're playing. Because there are decks
Right.
that even if they don't have like access to too much spell and trap removal, like emergency provisions or MST, there are decks that do sort of like benefit from the discards. For instance, if you're playing a more flip focused strategy and playing Night Assailants, then you don't really care as much if the Night Assailants get pitched off the Mirage. So I think that like hitting over the Jinzo is interesting. Must mean that they've got a good trap in the back row. Or they're trying to prevent their opponent from metaing into like Senshi, right? Yeah, I think that makes sense. But
like, what does Senshi do?
yeah, Senshi doesn't do anything on this board, so I feel like you can just hit into Koichi and be fine.
You gain back 1,000 life points.
Yeah, it gives you 2
So-
activations of Fairy Lily. Whereas like right now, what that option can do is just summon out another monster, attack over or try to attack over Lily twice, and then one of those will connect if Machu's paying, right? I guess they could have done that anyways. Because the gain is during your turn, not your opponent's. So as in like from Machu's perspective. So I guess that makes sense. But yeah,
He should just pick instead of roll the dice.
Yeah, it just makes it easier. But I mean, as like you can do it if you want, as long as you're not like just constantly rerolling. Like some people constantly reroll for things like duo or something. It's like, no, don't please. Okay, I guess maybe no, because you're fine. I guess there were lines to lethal if that option has another monster in hand, and they can go for creature swap, right? There are lines if like you leave them the Jinzo, right? So I guess that makes sense. But yeah, it's a little bit iffy, I think.
Tough spot now.
That option might also have wanted to go for scapegoat in draw phase. Because the idea behind that is you scapegoat in draw phase, give your opponent a goat token, you take Lily, and then you hit over the goat token with Dekoichi, and you attack indirectly for 34. So that might have been a move as well. Would have dropped Picchu down to 200, which is very, very scary to be in. And giving you also like a pretty full board. So yeah, that might have been a move as well. But I think this shows like how deep the gameplay in Warrior format can be. Like, we've been just like dissecting this game as it's been going on. And there's been a lot of interesting like points of interaction, things that players could have done differently here. Very, very good stuff from all sides. But yeah, Machu's in a tough spot. You know about the Vampire Lord in hand. They've not added back Serpent to hand while it's been engraved. But you know, I people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. You know, I have forgotten Serpent my fair share of times. It's just something that like you gotta always try and remember. Going back to these old formats, it is very important and can come up because it could give them a potential blocker here. Yeah, but now like that option will know it's not Serpent if Machu sets something here. So yeah, a bit rough here. But Shaken Grave, so maybe they've got Book of Life, for instance. But Book of Life doesn't really help you too much. I mean, you can put Koki in defense and then pop the Lily, right? But yeah, you don't want to attack into the Lily really because then you're taking 1,000. They're gonna go for pre-mat here. I guess you pre-mat back a card, tribute over it for Vampire Lord, but that's just kind of rough. Oh, they're going for Morphing Jar, so maybe they've got Book of Moon, and then you can Book of Moon the Morphing Jar. Okay, I kind of dig it if you're going for that. Yeah, it could also just be tribute set Vampire Lord. Oh, Creature Swap. Creature Swap is... Yeah, okay, I see why you do this. Maybe, yeah, I guess this makes sense because also you're giving them Morphing Jar. Morphing Jar can't kill you if it attacks indirectly next turn. Also, you know, if your opponent preserves the Sinister Serpent, they can't meta it away. So yeah, it makes sense to go for Morphing Jar over Serpent there. Tagging him for 13, million card from deck. What do you call here? Maybe Spell, but like, okay, they're going for Trap. I think that makes some sense because they've got probably a higher density of more impact traps in deck than like spells. But I don't know. Maybe the spell was the correct call. It's always tricky going for a mill-off Vampire Lord. You never know what's going to happen. But yeah, very precarious spot to be in for Machu Picchu. But they are pitching 3 from Mirage's effect, so that's pretty good. They're going to hit this one. What are they going to hit? Okay, hit Mobius. That you probably wanted your opponent to keep Mobius because it doesn't do anything in hand. They're gonna hit Saku. Saku, you know, again, not really the best hit there because you got Vampire Lord on field. And you hit. Okay, Gorilla is a good hit because Gorilla crashes with Lord, and you know that's pretty good for that option there. Yeah, going. Oh, that was a misclick, I guess. So you know about the Saku, but I mean, it shouldn't really matter here too much because you can also set Serpent. But yeah, that option is going to set 2, pass back to Machu Picchu here. And that option is going to draw 4 off the Mirage. Now, let's see if Machu Picchu will remember the Serpent now because that actually does matter a lot, getting back the Serpent here because you can set the Serpent as sort of insurance against what that option does. Looks like Machu Picchu is not going to get back the Serpent again. And again, that could come up. It is important to keep in mind. But they're checking the graveyard here. See what that option's gone through. See what they still got remaining. We know about the meta in the back row. We know there's a meta. And I think that's it that we know in the back row. We can assume that they don't have like... Or maybe they do have like an MST or emergency provisions in the back row. Although you might just be like, okay, I'm actually not going to attack in here, not give them a back row slot for like an emergency provisions or MST because they're just drawing themselves to death with the Mirage. But it looks like they are going to attack in, so that option probably is going to fire the Saku here. Unless they've got another Compulse. Compulse would also bounce back the Lord to hand. Yep, they will go for Saku. That will destroy the Vampire Lord. And now Machu Picchu will not have anything on field.
It's going to come back, but because
Yeah.
right, because Machu Picchu forgot the Serpent.
Yeah, going for
Oh.
Book of Life here. Again, I mean, I think you just go for the Serpent here just in case, but they're bringing out a Ryu Koki, and yeah, that will get TT'd. And if you had the Serpent, you could have survived, but they did not. So that will be probably the end of the game here, unless that option doesn't have any monsters after this Mirage. But yeah, I agree with Hats. Just let him deck himself out. I think honestly the move there was just to not do anything with the Lord. Lord only comes back during your standby phase. This play does not actually work. So yeah, that's very unfortunate. But I mean, this is still potentially not the end of the game for Machu Picchu. It really depends on what they hit out of Data Option's hand. They're pitching 4 cards from this hand here. It just is a really bad spot to be in. And they forgot to remove a monster. Yeah, also that can come up, forgetting to remove a monster from grave. For instance, if they had gotten rid of the Magician of Faith in grave with the Book of Life, then you know, if Data Option's left with a Chaos monster, they can't bring that out. So yeah, just really rough play. But like again, you know, this has been a long tournament, and it's easy to forget these sorts of things at the end of a long tournament after you've been playing a lot of games at a high level. And Machu Picchu has definitely been doing that. So, you know, it's easy to sit here on the sidelines, like watching, having not played. Oh damn, that's a lot of monsters. So
This is wild. He still doesn't have MST. Like, imagine if MST is the last card in deck, and like now I'm assuming that he only has MST to destroy his own Mirage.
yeah,
Imagine that's the last card in deck, and then because like I have a question. Apparently this never came up, but let's say like you do not have enough cards in deck to draw up to 4. Like what does even happen?
I think it attempts to resolve as much as possible. So I think you will still draw as many cards as you can.
Do you deck out yourself? Do you like die on the spot?
I don't think you deck out with Mirage itself. I don't actually know. But yeah, 3 Sakus are gone, I think. Yeah, 3 Sakus are gone. Double Widespread are gone. So, but again, not adding the Serpent, like, I think the Serpent
Oh my god.
really key here. Like, just
Oh my god.
at the edge of life, you know, especially with like Widespread still in the deck. But oh boy, so I think at this point you call spell, right? Because if they've got like MST or emergency provisions left in deck, you just go for spell to get it out of the deck.
Hopefully.
Yeah, but I mean,
Like he should have gone for spell all along.
Yeah, you
Because
also hit like
Vampire
change.
Lord is immune to the traps.
Yeah. Yeah, if you pick a type that can't be sent, it just nothing happens there. So yeah. Yeah, Hat says yes, you can't Mirage deck yourself out in standby. It's just like the Maxi challenge. Yeah. The OG Maxi challenge. Yeah.
Data options question like it ties back to what we talked about before, but because like does that data option have to reveal the deck or not?
Yeah, I don't think they'd have to reveal.
Right.
It would come out in the it would probably come out in the replay. Either it would come out in the replay or it wouldn't matter. So yeah, it looks like they're gonna call spell. Yeah, Book of Life's removal is mandatory, so actually I probably should have messaged them just saying that. But realistically, it wouldn't cause an irreparable game state relatively. I could just tell them now that, you know, you have to banish. It wouldn't make a difference at this point though. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, they do have another card here to set, so there is that at least. So, you know, the Serpent, not getting back the Serpent isn't the worst thing in the world given this, but it is still a bit worrying. And if they had another card to set there, then that would have been a lot better. But MST coming down for the Mirage finally. Sending Painful is very funny. But yeah, maybe Monster actually would have been the correct call there. Just because they're running so low on those. And if they don't have any monsters to deal with this, then what are they going to do, you know? Yeah, Data Option's going to think. A bit of a tricky situation to be in for sure. Can't be Morphing Jar set though, because Morphing Jar is now limited here. So they don't have to worry about that. They probably have Change of Heart, either in hand or left in deck, and that's something that they have to think about. Like, do I Change of Heart the Vampire Lord, get rid of the set? But that could potentially be like a Ryukoki, or not a Ryukoki set, but a Pyramid Turtle set, and then they get another monster, you know. But they're at the point where, like, they're so low on life points that can they afford to not do that sort of thing, you know? Yeah. Definitely a tricky game state to navigate. Like, I'm not sure what I'd do in Data Option Sues. But very intense game.
Like early on, it looked like a landslide victory, but
Yeah, but
turned
now,
out to be yeah,
yeah, clawing their way
very
back
interesting.
despite some of the roughness around the edges. Yes, they probably are playing BLS at some point too, which means that BLS is coming, and that's why potentially you call Monster off Vampire Lord, right? Because if Machu brings up BLS, you just lose the game, you know.
That's true.
The Book of Life banished wouldn't have actually mattered too much because they would have gotten another Light Engrave for the BLS. But if they've got another Book of Life here, then that would have potentially done something. So yeah, it looks like they're flipping up an Exiled Force here, using that to pop the set. So this is actually going to be a really good play because unless there's the third widespread back there, this might be the end of the game. Could also be a compulse, but wow, end of the game there, down to the wire.
Yeah,
That is wild. Yeah, I assume BLS was in their deck, or else they would have gone for it. You know, there's no way you side out BLS against zombies because BLS can banish the turtles, it can banish the Vampire Lord. There is the downside of like it losing to Koki, but like if you leave it in attack, then you don't really care about it losing to Koki. It's just a very, very good card. So I assume that they had BLS left in deck, but unfortunately it didn't work out for them there. And yeah, there was actually the argument to call Monster after the Vampire Lord at that point because of the BLS. And it's like if that's the last card, if that's the last monster left in their deck, then they have to send BLS. They can't bring that back. And that's one more win con gone. Especially because Change of Heart isn't really the best win con at that point if you've got another monster in hand. So fascinating stuff. And Machu Picchu is still in it. The zombie deck can still win. Oh boy, this is an intense finals. Whew. This has just been an intense locals all around, honestly. But I mean, it's made me really
very
excited
exciting.
for the monthly tournament. This tournament is great.
For sure.
But yeah, Vampire Lord pendulum summoning himself every turn is too much. That is true. It's very similar to the sort of like the pendulum decks later on in the game's history, where it's like, oh, you destroyed my pendulum monsters, I'll just bring them out again, you know. So that is very funny.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how both
Like
players.
I want to come back to. Okay. Like I want to, if we have the time, come back to like the previous point if the European meta and the US meta always differed from
Oh
each
yeah,
other.
we get
Like
the
we also
time
have
now
to
of
take
signing.
into,
Yeah.
we have to like take into the calculation that like the internet didn't exist as it does today. Like YouTube didn't exist because now if someone wins a tournament, like an hour later, you have the deck profile on YouTube, right?
Yeah. And
And like even like back in the day, if you look at coverages of big tournaments, like there's always like evolution going on from tournament to tournament, like from one week to the next. But then like I also remember like I believe it was Steam format. Um that might have been like around that time there might have been like a turning point because I remember like someone from the UK came up with like the Steam OTK list and um he won like nationals or something like that, and then people all over the world literally started to net deck his list and they would make like 1 card 2 card changes, just play the same list, win win win.
yeah, which shows that they were indeed net decking. They weren't just, you know, being like, oh, that's a neat
Right.
idea and, you know, coming up with the idea on their own. Or at least it implies that, you know.
And it might also be like part the format's fault, so to speak, like
Yeah.
the card design is at fault.
Yeah. Because
It's just too obvious. Yeah. I mean, summon Steen, summon big guy, you know, Cyber Twin, whatever. It's just too easy. It's just too obvious.
yeah. And it's still powerful even in modern Stein tournaments. Like I played in the last Stein tournament that happened on Format Library, and I just like brought the actual like historical topping list because I was like, I'm curious to see how modern decks
Right.
do against this, you know, and will this still win? Will it not? And I managed to get second place in that tournament because the list is still very strong into that meta. And it's just like, no matter how many innovations happen, that deck is still strong. And Yeah, it's a good
It
lesson
is.
that, like, you know, some formats, like, they're definitely underexplored, right? Like, I'd say that the topping list in like chaos format, warrior format, etc. There are definitely things you can change to improve on them. And I'd say there's probably improvements you can make in any format, right? But like some formats, they're definitely they discovered the best deck in the format and they knew it, and like that is still the best deck out there. But yeah,
Like I want to say like Steen is like the only thing that comes to my mind where like the historical best deck is the best deck.
yeah,
And like there's nothing you can really do about it.
and even in like you know, formats like Reaper, for instance, where Stein exists, but you know, historically it wasn't the top deck in the room. People found that just Stein existing is like the best thing you can do. Um, just going for the Stein OTK. And it's a little bit different from you know, the OCG version that History of Waiju one brings up, because like with the Stein OTK, you know, you're bringing out Cyber Twin and going for game that way. With the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon thing, you're going for like Megamorph and things like that. And the Stein OTK is a little bit more consistent, the later one, because you can use things like Cold Wave, for instance, to set up for it. I guess you can use Cold Wave to set up for it in the Blue Eyes version, but like it's a little bit more awkward, because you basically need like,
Well, I don't know, like but the OCG at that point in time, they might not even have had like Port Limited, Graceful Limited, and so on. Like the
that's
OCG
true.
is just wild.
Yeah,
It's just a completely different animal. It's just like
yeah, it's all
they
unique.
didn't. I mean, yeah, someone on the forums on the Discord said like they printed the cards. It's so funny. They printed the cards first, released them, and then they did the playtesting
Yeah,
in
and
that order.
that is, yeah, pot limited and cherry semi limited. Yeah,
I mean,
that's gonna make for quite the format. So yeah,
I
that
mean, like
actually
the
might have been
history
more
of
powerful
Era.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The history of Arata in the OCG is like one of the funniest things. They just keep printing cards and then they realize, oh, these cards are completely overpowered and like the game isn't fun
yeah.
because it's tier 0.
Honestly,
Tier 0 Exodia.
I've been enjoying the CMO series, the history of the OCG now, because I personally don't really have much interest in exploring the OCG on the channel and stuff, because I'm nostalgic for the TCG. And by the time cards came over to the TCG, there was still some broken stuff you could do, but it was nowhere near as like degenerate as some of the things in the OCG. Um, but like, I think it's fun to see other people experience that, and like watching that week to week is very fun. So it also will spread the sort of some of the more degenerate formats in the OCG to the masses. So that's kind of cool as well to see that. Yeah, if Sangam was still activated from hand, that'd be wild. Drastically change all the formats in the TCG for sure. Yeah, Duo too is kind of wild as well. But looks like they're just going to set one here. Now that set is probably going to be a turtle, I assume, or like a Reaper. Or a rat, probably. Like there are a bunch of good options for them, but that had to be the new draw. Because you wouldn't set Breaker. Like Breaker, you're summoning out if you want to use it, but it could be Morphing Jar as well. That's fair. So it is indeed the Morphing Jar. So they played around that very well. Pitching a Jinzo and a, what are they gonna pitch? A Breaker. I think there's actually an argument for the forceful send back. If you're setting Breaker, there's an argument for actually sending back Compulse as opposed to a monster, because now they can commit their entire hand. But I get why you do this, because then the Kaiku could banish the monsters from grave after, you know, you've sent them off Morphing Jar. So I guess that makes sense. But yeah. Well, Duo too, like Electric Snake isn't really a good answer for Duo, or it's not the best answer for Duo, because like it's very situational. If your opponent doesn't Duo you, then like it's just useless. So Serpent's a bit of a better answer. And yeah, Serpent is a bit of a problem for Duo at 2, because you're spending a bunch of life points to basically pitch one random card from hand as opposed to 2. But yeah, looks like Machu's got Exile, Dust Tornado, Ring of Destruction, Upstart maybe, and Storm. That's interesting. Storm will be pretty good here potentially. Yeah, this is a very good play on dat options part. Yeah. Yeah, they're sending back the Exile. I think that makes sense because Exile deals with the Moth, and you want the Moth to go off to get a spell back. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. MST, blind snipe in one of the back row, hitting the compulse. Actually, not a blind snipe because you knew about that. Yeah, it's not a blind snipe. Are you saying that that Electric Snake can be pitched with Charity? Because like, I mean, you could say that about any card. Like any bad card could be pitched off Charity. You know, it's not really the best there. But Upstart getting them deeper into their deck. This does unfortunately replenish that option's life point a little bit. So, you know, it's kind of rough. But, you know, you want to draw deeper. You're playing a bit more of a combo deck, so you do want to draw into your combo a little bit more. So looks like going to set some here. Now, you might want to set a bunch. Well, I don't know. You've got Storm, so that kind of conflicts with setting a bunch. But like, okay, going for Rat here. You could go Rat into Gorilla into Turtle into like Kogi, pop it that way. But it looks like they're going to just get the Faith flipped up right now. So that way, you know, they have to get back a Hand Rip. They can't get back something like Pot or something like that. I think that makes sense. And then main 2, what are they going to do? They're going to go... I probably want to set some here. Yep, they are indeed going to set some more. And they're just going to set one pass. So this will give that option an inkling to what they've got set there. But you also don't want to necessarily set into your opponent's Heavy Storm. So it makes sense in that regard as well. Let's see here. That option is going to be thinking about this play. Yeah, a bit of a tricky play for that option. You can go for the Hand Rip, but you know your opponent probably set their best stuff. So do you want to go for the Hand Rip? Yeah, it also depends on what else they've got in hand here as well. If you got Kaiku, you could go for Kaiku, but you know your opponent probably has Ring set. So I think they can potentially intuit a little bit about what each of these back row are, because Machu Picchu set one of them first, and then they set one in main phase 2. Now, that could have also been a big brain sort of move by Machu Picchu to get, you know, that option thinking about what those cards could be and thinking certain ways about those cards. But I think it's much more likely that they just, you know, went for that to potentially play around Morphing Jar, but they knew it was Moth. But they could have, you know, just been forgetting or playing it safe or whatever. And then they just set something after knowing that the Hand Rip was gotten back. So I don't know, though. I'm not sure how much you can really intuit from that. But yeah, definitely an interesting list from Almenia as well, who's that option here. We've been focusing on the interestingness of Machu Picchu's list because Machu Picchu's list is a zombie list, which is really cool to see. But that option is like innovating with their own list here. With the compulses, which, you know, have historically not really seen as much play around this time period. With Berserk Gorilla, with 4-star Ladybug, you know, a lot of very cool decisions on that option's part. Very cool stuff. It looks like Machu Picchu has Heavy Storm and Reaper in hand. Bit of a tricky choice here for sure. Probably send back Reaper, I would assume. Unless you got a way to deal with Reaper. But if you don't have a way to deal with Reaper, you probably send back Reaper because you can play around Heavy Storm more easily. So, yeah. Oh, so yeah, that's a good point because Machu Picchu hadn't really shown much chaos stuff. So, yeah, it seems similar to a historical deck list, Jai Kim's deck list, without the chaos stuff. So, I wonder if they took inspiration from that or if they were just going their own direction with zombies. But that option's thinking. Lots to think about here. This could be a make or break moment for the game. They're typing it out. Based on the time of typing, I assume they're going to be saying Reaper. Because it's one letter longer than Storm. Okay, no, they're going for Storm. That's interesting. I guess that means they must have a way to deal with Reaper. Maybe they've got like... Okay, they got Breaker to pop one in the back row. And will Machu Picchu take the 50-50 on which back row they're popping? I think it's probably best to take the 50-50 because what you do is you just chain like Ring here if it's Ring, you chain Dust Tornado if it's Dust Tornado, and then you use Exile to clear up the other monster. It is indeed the Ring, so I think that is like, you could intuit that that was the Ring because of the order in which Machu Picchu set them. But yeah, they're going to hit the Berserker with that. But again, that's what you'd be hitting anyways. And now what you do is you just like Dust Tornado the back row potentially, and then go for Reaper here to hidden. So yeah, it looks like... Okay, it looks like that option's not going to set that card into a Dust Tornado. Looks like they're going to set that card, pass back to Machu Picchu here. Now, will Machu Picchu go for the end phase Dust Tornado? They are indeed going to do that. Hitting the latest set, it was a Sakuretsu armor there. That would have been very good against Reaper. But there is the question, does Machu Picchu just go for Reaper anyways? Go for Force to pop the Breaker. They did indeed do that. And now, are they going to go for Reaper? They are indeed going to go for Reaper. I think this was... Oh, it's not really a misordering because...
Pretty risky. It's pretty risky.
Yeah.
Because Aomine has Saku, widespread, compulse, so many outs.
Yeah, but you kind of have to go for it if you're at that point in the game, you know? So, yeah. But there is also a Latent Dark and Grave, so that could be really rough for Machu Picchu here if that option does have a Chaos Monster. And they are checking their graveyard. They're also checking their opponent's graveyard, though, as well. Maybe for Book of Life knowledge. But I'm curious what Machu Picchu has in hand. I assume it's like a Koki or like a Lord or something like that. But yeah, they're bringing out a Kaiku here. That's really bad for Machu Picchu. Shutting off the Book of Lives, which are very good off the top. Yeah, it's just, that's really rough for Machu Picchu there. Maybe a sign that they should have set the Reaper. But again, the fact that that option, you know, took the Storm instead of the Reaper, maybe a sign that they had a way to deal with the Reaper if it was set. So I think it made sense somewhat to do that, but you know, it is what it is. That's the risk you take, you know. Now, we've seen many Sakuretsu Armors or Widespread Ruins out of Machu Picchu. I don't think we have, which might mean that they're not really playing them. In which case, you know, that option you just sit on the Kaiku, attack in, and just have like, you know, Machu Picchu's potential Torrential Tribute here be dead. That set could also be like a card of safe return as well. That's kind of dead at this point too. And it's really rough here. And now just one more attack out of that Kaiku will be the end of the game if Machu Picchu can't block it. So Rat's getting sent and probably also an exiled, I assume. I'd assume the exiled because exiled has the most utility here being revived. Oh, they're just going to banish one. Okay. I mean, you can do that. Like, Kaiku doesn't have to banish two. It can just banish up to two if you want. But I'm not really sure why you leave the Exiled Force in Grave there. There's no Reborn in this format, so you can't get that back. Looks like it's a heavy set. Getting rid of a Scapegoat. So, you know, good use of the heavy there. Can't use Scapegoat when you got two monsters on field. And it looks like they've got card of safe return. Is the last card here a way to revive a monster? I mean, you'd have to have, like, Premat. No, it's just Koki. Yep. That is going to be the end of the game. And, I mean, that shows, like, you wind up in these situations when you play a more combo-oriented deck where you just can't play your cards if you're in a bad spot. And that's what happened here. So, very cool to see this deck make it to the finals. Awesome to see. Just great games here all around. Yeah, that option almost decked out game two. I mean, we saw a pretty intense game here as well. Yeah, but the hand rips really did make a difference here, and they really did prevent the zombie deck from doing much. Yeah, Return is also in this format. I think Dimension Fusion is a little bit better than Return because it's a bit more proactive. But I could definitely see Return being played in some decks just as a way to, you know, have access to your banish pile at any point. And it's a cool card. It also doesn't bring back your opponent's banish cards too, so that could come up too. But yeah, Return is definitely interesting. But very good stuff here. Dad option, Almine will indeed win the locals today. We've got a new locals legend here. Congratulations to them. And yeah, normally I have like a post-game interview stuff, but it's been about 3.5 hours since streaming, so I'm probably going to sign off here without, sort of doing the post-game interview. But very good stuff here from all players involved. Great stuff. Also, I mentioned my own like Warrior tournament coming up here in the Discord server. Definitely join that if you want to join that tournament. But also there's some other exciting retro format tournaments coming up soon. On Tuesday, there's both a Fiber tournament and a Chaos tournament starting, both multi-day. One is in the Fiber Jar Discord server. The other is in the Chaos Corner Discord server. You can find links to those in the YGO from Zero Discord server if you want to hop into there. But those should be some really fun tournaments in some really underexplored formats, or maybe not underexplored in Chaos's case, but like still very fun formats. So I highly encourage you all to join that if you want some more DM action. But yeah, and I hope that you all enjoy the Warrior tournament as well. But that's going to do it for me. I've been Ben from YGO from Zero. If you enjoyed this sort of content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps a lot. Also, let me know down below what you thought of these games in the comments if you weren't on the stream. And until next time, I've been Ben. I hope you all enjoyed as always, and I'm signing off. Peace. Okay, good stuff.